Greetings, travel fiends. It's so exciting being here in London. I'm already feeling right at tomb. Care to join me for a little fright seeing? Tips. Or we could go check out my English heritage. I bet you didn't know your pal, the Crypt Keeper, was one of the crown ghouls. Did you, creeps? I've got all kinds of skeletons in my closet, which is kind of like the family in tonight's tale. You could call it Father Knows Beast, but I prefer Fatal Caper.
Oh my God, what have I done? Retiring? You?
I didn't say today, and I don't mean tomorrow, but soon, Mycroft.
You're a young man still. Young men don't retire. Unless, of course, they're my sons.
Yes. Talk to Miss Havisham. Just listen to what she's got to say.
I do not want some old trout rooting through my affairs.
Look, it's a small change. You're never too old to change.
I am. I'm dying. I'm for the worms, old boy. All these years, I've given you a bloody good living. Now that I really need you, you want to hand me over to some ghastly dragon who knows nothing about me. My last will and testament has to be handled properly.
And because I appreciate that, I brought in Miss Havisham. In matters like this, she's a specialist. She's the best.
Well, I suppose, Redmond, if you feel that strongly about her.
Why don't we start at the beginning, Lord Ampson? You want to change your will. Why?
As I'm sure Redmond has already told you, Miss Havisham, my life's in a bit of a muddle just now. I'm not well. No, weak hearts. Running the family. With the time I've got left, I want to get things in order.
Please, do go on.
Well, I got 3 sons, you know, about 15 years ago. One of them left. Come on. I don't want your salt in my house. Come on, get out. Get out! Frank, he was called. Haven't heard from him since. I've begun to see now that he was the smart one.
Tell me about your other sons.
Can you feel anything?
Yes. Can you?
God, this tantric sex stuff's brilliant.
I suppose I was the same way in my time.
Tell me about your other son.
Evelyn.
I know these envelopes and stuff. It's Christmas bonuses, Father. Not stupid, you know. When you hear why I took them. I think you'll be quite pleased with me. £50 each. Really, Father, I think you've taught me better than that. You should give them £10 and tell them to keep up the good work. And then give me the £40.
Yes, I see the problem.
I've raised a couple of monsters. The thought of leaving my house and my money, my title.
And was Frank so very different?
That's why I disowned him.
And now you regret it? Right. This is going to be tricky. The first thing you have to do is tell them.
What? Evelyn? Justin?
You must.
They'd kill me. It wouldn't take much. I'm not a well man.
You must, Lord Ampersand. Really, you must.
I'm sure you've given this a great deal of consideration, Father, being the clever man you are, but...
Oh, what exactly does the new will say?
It says quite simply that the two of you must locate your younger brother within 6 months of your father's demise, if you were to receive your inheritance.
What? Nobody's heard from Frank in 15 years. What if we can't find him?
Then it all goes to charity. The house, the money, everything.
Charity?
And, the title?
Oh, well, the title's yours. You're the eldest. You can't exactly give it away.
Oh. Well, that's not so bad.
Righty-ho, then. Everyone gets what they deserve. You get titled, you get dead, and I get nothing.
Well, maybe that's what you deserve.
Shut up! And as for you, you meddling bitch,
That's enough!
get off me, you crazy old man! You think I'm going to stand for this after a lifetime of filial devotion?
Well, that's what you call devotion, is it? Keeping his arsehole warm with your face.
I told you to shut up! The whole idea is grossly unfair. I refuse to accept it!
It doesn't matter whether you accept it or not. There's nothing you can do about it.
That's what you think, girlie. There's plenty I can do. I'll have the old bastard committed.
Actually, I think Father's right changing his will.
Fine. I'll have you both committed. Maybe they'll even let me throw the switch for your shock therapy.
Oh, what's the matter with you? Miss your morning feeding, did you?
Stop it! For God's sake, please. I wanted to bring you all together and not give you cause to fight. But please.
For God's sake, call an ambulance.
Old man, either you change your will back to the way it was, or I swear to God that I'll... He's faking it.
I feel awful about this. It's all my fault. I forced him to tell them. He knew it was a mistake.
The important thing is the will was redrawn on time. Just make sure Mycroft's wishes are carried out. Where's Justin?
Doesn't like funerals. He's inside, meditating.
Oh, that's incredible. Oh.
We're going back to the office. Call me, huh?
My God, you're disgusting.
Oh, it's not what you think.
Morning, sir.
All right, then maybe it is, but I didn't do it for me. I did it for Father.
You know why he's happy just to have the title, don't you? Thinks it's another way to get women.
Bollocks. I don't need a title to get women. I'll show you. You coming up, darling? Bed's still warm. What about if I did have a title? Would that help?
Sorry, I find you even more disgusting than he does.
Please yourself?
Makes your skin crawl, doesn't it?
Your brother, Frank, what was he like?
Well, he was sensitive, I suppose. I remember when he was little, he would look up at me with his wide, admiring eyes. Drove me out of my fucking mind. God, I hated the little bastard.
And you really haven't seen him for 15 years?
Not a peep. We're well rid of each other.
Good, I hope so, because I'd hate to cheat him out of anything.
Cheat him.
What I'm about to say is wrong. It, even thinking about it violates the trust your father placed in me. You see, there's a codicil in his will, and it stipulates that if only one of his descendants remains before the deadline runs out, then that person gets everything. House, money. I'd be willing to make that happen for you. For a price, of course.
Miss Havisham, are you suggesting that we kill my brother? How much exactly did you want?
First things first.
Return to sender. Not load of this address. Return to sender. Oh, we've sent letters to every address we could think of. The boy's vanished. Would it be possible before time runs out to have Frank declared legally dead?
But we've only just begun to search for him. If you want your money, and for all we know that's your sole reason for living, you'd better find him. Fiona, what did it say in Father's will? The part about finding Frank?
It said, only after using all means at your disposal.
All means at our disposal. Well, we haven't done that yet, have we? We could, hire a detective.
Detectives cost money.
Well, does it say anything about cost in the will?
Well, actually,
Yeah, right, of course. For a moment there, I forgot who I was dealing with. I have an idea that will tell us if Frank is alive or dead, and it won't cost us a bleeding thing. A seance. I want to communicate with Father's spirit. Now, if Frank is dead, I'm sure Father will know all about it. If Frank's alive, well, no, we'll have to continue the search.
God, I hate you.
Now, Fiona, I'm sure that a consummate professional such as yourself could not rest assured knowing she hadn't done her job to the very best of her ability. Unless, of course, there was some hidden agenda.
well, I don't see what harm there would be in it.
Marvelous.
Do you really think he's up to something?
I know he is.
No. Your brother may be a sex maniac and a cad, but I hardly think he's malicious. Oh.
Evelyn, I'm warning you. Heed my desires. Your brother is alive. And if you want your money, you better get your fat ass moving.
Pathetic.
It's ridiculous. I mean, why would he go to such lengths?
For your benefit, I'm sure. How long will it take to have Frank declared legally dead?
Oh, well, I'll start the paperwork today. So what are you going to do?
I'm going to bring Father back from the dead.
Aha.
Eglatia sanctum. Wo spiritus veritas. Clactu berada. Nictu. Gatekeeper of the spirit world. Permit us mortals a moment's transgression onto your plane.
The gates have opened for us.
This is craps.
Father, those you have left behind seek counsel with you. Are you there?
Yes.
Father, is that you? We have looked for Frank. We cannot find him. Have you seen him? There, in the afterlife?
For Christ's sake.
Evelyn, I'm warning you. Heed my desires. Your brother is alive. And if you
Frank's
want your
alive?
money, you better.
I've had enough of breaking the connection.
Evelyn, heed your brother. I've yet more to say. Your brother Justin mocks me.
Oh, my God! What the hell's going on? Chest hurts, does it? Good. I hope it stays like that for the rest of eternity.
Fuck you.
No. Fuck you.
Hurry up.
I am. So, tomorrow we make reservations. Some secluded hotel up north. Using Justin's credit card. That the plan?
Right, and if anyone asks, we just say that he's gone to a hotel to meet some woman.
You really have thought of everything.
I just wanted to make sure you got your money's worth.
Right. Let's get this over with. afraid you're going to have to help me. Justin?
Surprise!
You were dead!
Tantric sexual breathing exercise heightens orgasm and gets fat, greedy sibling to walk into trap.
Trying to scare me. It's working. You have no reason to be angry at me. Miss Hammerson, please, please. You can't let him do this to me.
Oh, I'm afraid I can. He offered me a lot more money.
I always said he was hard-hearted.
Come on, let's get this over with.
You know, you and I, we make a pretty good team. How about, once this little nastiness is over, we do a spot of horizontal teamwork?
Justin, I wouldn't have sex with you if the survival of the species depended on it. Not even if you had a title.
Don't know what you're missing, darling. You could help, you know.
I think I'd rather not.
God, I'm going to spend my inheritance getting this bloody hernia fixed.
Can I help you?
What a terrible way to go.
Weak heart runs in the family.
I spoke with Frank this morning, Lord Amberson. He's really looking forward to seeing you.
Mycroft, please. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Well done, Fiona. If I may be so familiar. You know, I may be a bit older, but I still know a thing or two about pleasuring a woman. You have beautiful breasts.
Thank you. The truth is, I've had them done. In fact, there's another piece of surgery that you should know about. I've been waiting, you see, for the money I'm about to inherit.
Oh, God. Nora. Fella.
Hello, Daddy.
Frank.
You said you wanted to put your affairs in order.
Oh, my God. What have I done?
Exactly what you wanted to do.
Sorry we can't stay for a chat. The police will be here in a minute. Come on, let's go.
He's right, you know. You do have a beautiful body. I wasn't so set in my way to think about having a go at you myself.
Never too old to change.
In the end, Mycroft just didn't make the cut. Then again, neither had Frank. I bet that's one sunrise Mycroft wishes he'd never seen. Well, kiddies, looks like I'll be staying in England for a while. I think we'll all enjoy the trip. And when we finally do go home, I'm sure we'll have lots of souvenirs. Greetings, infestors. I'll be with you in a moment. I was just putting these gross profits away for safekeeping. You see, boils and ghouls, at CRYPT Financial, we can help you get morgue for your money. Whether it's mutual fiends you want, or cold, horrid cash, we can guarantee you'll coroner the market. I bet you'd be the type who's interested in boo chips. Like tonight's tale. It's about 3 girls who are chopping around for a tax write-off of their own. In a nasty shock option I call Last Respects.
It's done.
Richard, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. The dogs have him now. He can't hurt you.
Good Sophie. Good Kingsley. Always faithful. The dogs do love us, don't they? No matter what pact we'd made with the devil.
Of course, darling. Animals don't understand these things.
Ah, God, oh!
Come on.
Do you have it?
Yes, I have it.
Just one last wish to make things right again.
No, no more wishes.
But I can outwit it this time. I know what to do.
How can you believe such a thing after what we've seen? This abomination raised a dead thing from its grave in answer to your wish.
I can send it away again with my final wish. If you'll allow me just to hold it!
No, no, the third wish must go unused. It's the only way.
Sophie?
No!
I did it, Richard. You'll see, I made a wish that this paw would be owned by someone who really deserved it. We're free of the curse now!
But don't you see, for the paw to belong to someone else, we would have to... You have your wish at last, my darling. We're free of the curse forever.
What are those?
They're for Halloween.
We're a house of curios, not a costume shop.
Dolores, at this rate, we'll soon be paupers. And no amount of Father's magic is going to change that. If we're going to survive, we're going to have to expand our client base.
Never! I will not have nasty little children in this shop dressed up like Iggy Oswald, biting the heads off rubber bats.
Ozzy Oswald.
Oh, Iggy Oswald. Whomever. I will not have them mocking the dark arts. Would more than likely cause Father to roll over in his grave. Sorry, Father.
That'd be novel. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? If you're thinking of coming back from the dead anytime soon, would you please let us know, because we could use the space.
Help Marley, please, before she breaks something.
Sorry. Oh, help her yourself. She's more fond of you anyway.
Of course she is. With an attitude like yours, it's a wonder you have any human relationships at all.
Well, at least I'm not in my 30s and still single. You know, there's a very good reason why no man will have you, and it has absolutely nothing to do with that ugly hammer toe of yours. It's because you're boring. Boring as Buckingham Palace.
Funny, but I swear I remember asking for help.
Of course you did, darling. But your sister and I were just discussing business.
Or the lack thereof.
Oh, yes. Well, business is slow.
Terribly slow. Maybe it's time we reconsider our options.
No. I will not sell Mr. Finger's House of Curios. Promised Father.
Times change, and people must change too.
Let's not forget that Basil and I still have Grandmother Oakfist to feed. The money would be very helpful.
I won't sell. I can't.
She's terribly selfish. I don't understand why Father left her in charge. I knew we should have contested the will.
I hate you.
Yeah, well, I hate you even more. In fact, I detest the actual day that you were born. You wretched little mistake. Has that ever occurred to you? That one more prophylactic to a box and it would have been just the two of us?
You liar! That's not true!
Look!
It's a sign.
3 wishes. Dolores, don't be daft. Basil, are you going to join us?
In a moment, darling. The ham smells delicious.
It's lamb, you twit.
Lamb, you say? Interesting. Carry on, I'll just be a minute.
As I was saying, that whole monkey paw business is just an old story, something Father told us as children.
It's more than that, Levon. It was in a book.
Yes. Thank you, Marlies. Your literary insight is awe-inspiring, as always. But as most people know, stories do come from books.
Not always. Sometimes they come from newspapers.
Stop your quibbling. It doesn't matter where the story came from. What matters is that the story is true.
All right. What if? How do we even know this is the paw? Marlies, did you check with the people you purchased it from?
I told you. It was an estate sale. The couple was deceased.
Beware the paw. It is cursed. More meat. More meat.
A simple please would have sufficed. Do you see what I have to put up with around here? Do you? It's ridiculous.
What about a magazine? On occasion, stories are found in magazines too.
Thank you, Basil. Have you taken your medicine? Good. Then feel free to continue embarrassing yourself as much as you like.
Yvonne, listen to me. I believe what Marley said this morning is true. Father doesn't want us to sell the store.
How do you know that?
Because he sent us a helping hand from beyond the grave. 3 wishes I give, and no more, to each owner of me, so keep score. Each wish will come true, so take care what you do. Blast, I can't make out the rest.
Let me. Something illegible. Greed I deplore. It's not very friendly sounding, is it?
Grandmother gone to sleep?
Yes. Basil, what a shame. Are you sure you know what you're doing? If I remember the story correctly, those wishes had a way of taking a nasty turn.
Then we'll just have to be smarter than the people in that book. They were greedy.
Right. We'll start smaller. We'll be a bit more careful.
We won't wish for any more than we really need.
Exactly. I wish for £1 million.
£1 million? We're as good as dead.
You said start small.
That's not small.
Yes, it is. In the scheme of things. Don't forget that I have unlimited power here. I could have easily asked for 100 million. Or even £1 billion.
Not that it really matters, because nothing happened. Hello? Yes. Yes, she's here. Certainly. How many? Right. Just a moment, please.
I don't want it. I'm afraid.
Oh, shut up, you bloody parrot. It's Father's lawyer.
Hello?
What is it?
One of Father's ships.
Yes, Mr. Katz?
Delivered to his lawyer by a representative of the post office. Apparently it was lost in the system for over 40 years.
What was in the shipment?
According to the paperwork, 3 fountain pens.
Yes. Fountain pens.
Yes. Waterford snakes. Only 4 exist in the entire world. We now own 3. At £250,000 apiece.
How much? £750,000. Do you know what this means? The poor works.
Except that you wished for $1 million. Doesn't that seem odd?
Oh, what the hell? We're rich. We're rich. Yes. We are.
Or should I say, she is.
Whatever do you mean?
As the owner of the House of Curios, the pens legally belong to her.
Oh, but she'll share with her sisters. Won't she? Don't let her out of your sight.
I still can't believe it. £750,000 million, and it's all mine. To be shared with the 2 of you, of course.
Well, I, for one, won't believe any of this until the pens are safely in our vault.
Oh, never doubt the power of the spirit world. If Father wants us to succeed, we will. I'll be in the shop. Get back as soon as you acquire the pens.
Perhaps it would be better if I put the pens in my safety deposit box at the First National.
Safety deposit box? When?
Since Daddy died. It was all part of the will. I thought you knew.
No, we didn't know.
Why didn't you tell us?
I thought I did. Oh, well. I guess I didn't think it was that important. Don't you worry, sweetie. Those pens are as good as ours. What do you mean there are no pens? On the phone you said there were 3 pens. 3 pens worth £250,000 each.
Well, I'm sorry, but as you can see for yourself, there was a misprint on the shipping letter.
What am I supposed to do with 33 waterways snakes? I'm warning you, Marlies. Stop this nonsense right now. Marlies, are you listening to me?
Again, my condolences, Miss Finger. But as I mentioned before, I do have a dinner engagement.
Mr. Curd, I don't care if you're having dinner with the Queen in your underwear. If you don't take your hands off me right now, I promise you I will personally introduce all 33 of these snakes up your large and rather unflattering arm.
No, stop it! That's murdering, you spoiled brat! Where are the 2 of you?
A car accident? Are they both dead? Is Marlies dead? The doctor said she probably didn't feel a thing. We were fighting on the way home. She wouldn't stop crying. Don't. Can I see her? No, the car, it went up like an inferno. At least you were thrown free. She wouldn't stop crying. Stop, it gets worse. Do you remember the safety deposit box? She had an insurance policy. No. Oh, it's all my fault. It was worth £1 million. Exactly what I'd wished for. The monkey's paw. Destroy it. Destroy it. Promise me. I don't know if I can.
Read it again if you have to. You can't do it.
I can beat the poor. I can bring Marlies back.
No, you can't. That's exactly what they tried to do in the book. She wishes her son back to life, but he comes to the door as he is now, a rotting corpse.
Oh, I can beat the poor.
Dolores, Marlies is gone. Don't do any more damage. Give me the paw.
No, I've still got 2 wishes left. 2 wishes left.
No, Doctor, it's not healthy. She thinks it has magical powers. It's simply a stuffed paw, nothing more.
Lamont! Lamont!
Right, well, we'll see you tomorrow then, yes. Thank you.
What is it? I know what the second wish should be. Oh, why didn't I think of it before?
Give that to me.
I wish that Marlies was the way she was right before the accident. Answer the bloody phone.
Hello? Thank you. We'll be right there. That was the funeral home. They said they needed to see us right away. I can't do it. I can't go down there.
Fine. I'll go by myself. You never cared for her. She was your sister and you hated her.
As I told your sister, it's very strange, Miss Finger. Very strange.
She's alive, isn't she?
No. Not quite that strange. But strange enough. Look.
I don't understand.
frankly, neither do I. Please tell me your sister drove her car off the road.
Yes. The car went up in flames. She was horribly disfigured, burned.
Miss Finger, your sister's car didn't catch on fire. She drove it into the lake.
She did?
Yes, but something very odd is going on here. Somehow, the police detectives missed this. Just before your sister crashed her car, somebody put a bullet in her head. Your sister was murdered.
Murderer! As I believe you once said, times change, and people do too. Marley's told you about the insurance policies. You left Father's lawyer and you killed her.
That's right. And I would have got away with it, too, if it hadn't been for that ridiculous paw. Now, you had to try and bring the little brat back. You had all the money you could ever need, but no. You had to fuck with history.
You're mad.
No, I'm not. I'm justified. You didn't marry Basil. You didn't change Grandma Oakfist's nappies every night. I did. I paid my dues. And now I want out. And you're not going to stop me. Give me that bloody paw, Dolores. I don't want you using that last wish against me.
You don't have to worry, Levon. I've already used it.
You what?
Oh, I'm not as daft as you think. I gave my wish away. I wished that the last wish belonged to my sister.
You were pathetic. I don't want your wish. In fact, I wish that you had your wish back. That's done it?
Oh, no, it's not. Because I didn't tell the poor witch sister to give it to. I beat it at its own ridiculous game. That twisted paw gave the wish to Marley's. The funny thing is, her wish was to spend a little more time with you.
Shame about Levon. She wanted so badly to be rich, but ended up just another paw girl. Still, you'll be pleased to know, kiddies, that the girls settled their differences and reopened the store as Ye Old Goriosity Shop. It's so nice to see a little family business that gruesome. As for me, I'm afraid a few of my investment strategies have gotten me into trouble with the IRS. Not to worry, though. The joke's on him. I'm about to make a killing.
The night was unusually still, the kind of stillness that seemed almost tangible, pressing against the ears and throat like an invisible hand. In the dim glow of the city, neon lights flickered intermittently, casting fractured reflections across the slick pavement. Outside, a drizzle fell in lazy, indifferent arcs, smearing the glow of a broken street lamp into a sickly halo. Somewhere, a distant siren wailed, more mournful than urgent, announcing nothing in particular but threatening everything. It was the sort of night that whispered secrets to anyone foolish enough to listen, secrets best left alone, secrets that could turn a clever man into a corpse before he even realized he was playing a game he could never win. In an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the industrial district, the faint smell of rusted metal and mold mingled with the pungent aroma of cigarette smoke. Dust motes floated lazily through shafts of weak light, settling like judgment upon cracked wooden crates and shattered glass. In the shadows, a man moved with a predator's grace, his black coat flaring like wings as he navigated the cluttered space. Harold Vance was a man of considerable reputation in the city's underworld, a thief whose exploits were whispered about with a mix of awe and fear. His latest job was simple in description but complicated in execution. Intercept a priceless artifact en route from a private collector to a clandestine auction, steal it cleanly, and vanish without leaving so much as a fingerprint. But Harold was fond of complexity. He thrived on it, drew pleasure from the challenge, from the delicate dance between risk and reward. He had studied the shipment's route for weeks, memorizing every security camera angle, every blind spot, every shift change of the armed couriers. He had mapped the alleyways, the loading docks, the drainage tunnels, even the patterns of the pigeons roosting above the rooftops. Yet, tonight, as he crouched in the shadows, listening to the faint hiss of the rain against the corrugated steel roof, a sudden sense of unease prickled at the back of his neck. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, a twitch of the spine, a shadow that moved against the flow of logic. Harold shook it off, attributing the sensation to fatigue. After all, the city never slept, and neither did those who lived in its dark arteries. He lit a cigarette, inhaled deeply, and exhaled a thin plume of smoke, watching it curl and twist like a ghost in the pale light. Smoke and shadows, he thought, the two constants in his profession, and yet tonight they felt different. Ominous, a warning he chose to ignore. Harold's target was a small, unassuming briefcase, reinforced with lead lining and secured with a biometric lock. To the untrained eye, it appeared ordinary, a mere accessory for a wealthy businessman. To Harold, it represented opportunity, the kind of rare, fleeting opportunity that came once in a lifetime. He had followed the courier for hours, tailing the armored van through deserted streets and industrial wastelands, blending into the night as naturally as darkness itself. Timing was crucial. A single misstep, a single unexpected presence could unravel everything. As the van stopped outside a nondescript loading dock, Harold observed silently from the shadows. Two guards stepped out, rifles slung casually over their shoulders, and a third unlocked the rear doors. The briefcase, encased in reinforced foam, was handed off with meticulous care, exchanged between hands that had been trained to value precision over speed. Harold's pulse quickened. The moment had arrived. He descended from the steel beam he had perched upon, landing silently behind a stack of crates. Every muscle was taut, every nerve alert. Slowly, deliberately, he moved forward, keeping to the shadows, watching for any sign of trouble. And then he saw her. She was standing beside the van, an unexpected figure dressed in a long trench coat, her face obscured by a hood. Her presence was uncanny, unnatural almost, as if she had stepped out from some dream Harold had long tried to forget. She didn't speak, didn't move with the casual carelessness of the guards, but instead observed the scene with an intensity that made Harold's skin crawl. Something about her was wrong. Too quiet, too deliberate, too impossibly still. Harold hesitated for the first time that night. Instinct screamed at him to retreat, to vanish into the alleyways and wait for another opportunity. But curiosity, that dangerous, insatiable curiosity, pushed him forward. He took a step, then another, closing the distance to the van, calculating the timing with meticulous care. He was almost at the target when she turned her head slowly, and in that moment their eyes met. It was as though time itself had fractured. Harold felt a chill crawl up his spine, the cigarette smoke in his lungs turning bitter. The woman's eyes were impossibly black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and for a moment he swore he could see himself reflected in them, but older, hollowed, trapped. She smiled then, a small, cruel twist of her lips, and it was the sort of smile that promised pain disguised as pleasure. Harold froze. Something about that smile was familiar, yet utterly alien. Before he could react, the briefcase was gone. 1 second, it had rested in the crate, the next, it was in her hands, vanishing like smoke. Harold lunged, but she moved with an unnatural grace, almost gliding rather than stepping, and she was gone, swallowed by the shadows as though she had never been there. The guards barely noticed, too engrossed in their routine to comprehend the loss. Harold landed on the pavement, heart hammering, mind racing. Who, or what, was she? And where had she taken the briefcase? He followed, of course. Curiosity and greed overrode caution. He darted through alleys, across slick rooftops, through tunnels that reeked of rot and decay. Each turn, each shadow seemed to bend and shift unnaturally, guiding him, misleading him, challenging him. It was a labyrinth, a trap disguised as opportunity, and Harold could feel it. The city itself seemed complicit, reshaping itself to confound him. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was meaningless here. Finally, he reached a courtyard lit by a flickering lantern. And there she was again, the woman with the impossibly dark eyes standing beside the briefcase. She did not move, did not speak, merely regarded him as if measuring the worth of his soul. Harold raised his hands, trying to steady his voice. "Who are you?" he demanded, though he already knew the question was meaningless. She tilted her head, the faintest hint of amusement playing across her features. "I am the consequence of your choices," she said, her voice soft, yet carrying a weight that pressed against his chest. "You think you control fate, Harold Vance, but tonight, fate controls you." Harold laughed, a short, brittle sound. "I've faced worse than you, sweetheart. I steal things, I cheat death for a living. What makes you different?" Her smile widened, a shadow curling across the courtyard. "Because I am not alive," she said simply. "And you, well, you've always been too greedy for your own good." The words sank into him like icy knives. He tried to reach for the briefcase, but the moment his fingers brushed the handle, the world seemed to tilt. The lanterns flared, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls like living things. The ground trembled, subtly at first, then violently, shaking loose the very bricks beneath his feet. Harold stumbled, clinging to the briefcase, but it was not the tremor that struck him. It was the feeling that the woman had reached inside his mind, twisting thoughts, memories, fears, and regrets into a web he could not escape. Every crime he had committed, every life he had destroyed, every betrayal and theft came rushing back in vivid, excruciating clarity. The briefcase burned under his grasp, metal hot to the touch, and he realized with horror that it was not the artifact he had sought. It was a trap, a conduit, a punishment. And then she was gone again, leaving only the echo of her laughter. Harold dropped to his knees, clutching the briefcase, feeling the weight of every sin pressing down upon him. The rain began to fall harder, drumming against his shoulders, washing away the smoke, but not the terror, not the inevitability. The shadows in the courtyard writhed, as if alive, and Harold understood at last. Some games could not be won, some prizes were never meant to be taken, and some consequences would find you no matter how clever, no matter how fast, no matter how careful. In the distance, sirens wailed again, closer this time, and Harold knew that he had been marked. Not by the law, not by rivals, but by something far older, far crueler. Something that would follow him until he paid the price in full. He tried to rise, tried to run, but the courtyard seemed to stretch infinitely, twisting, looping back upon itself. Every exit led him back to her absence, back to the briefcase, back to the realization that he had stepped into a story he could never escape. And as the night deepened, swallowing the city in its wet, indifferent darkness, Harold Vance finally understood the truth. The fatal caper was not about stealing, not about the artifact, not about cleverness or skill. It was about temptation, about the hunger for what should never be touched, and about the inexorable reckoning that awaited every man who dared to defy forces he could never comprehend. Harold sat there, drenched and shivering, the briefcase before him, and for the first time in his life he felt fear. Not the sharp, immediate fear of discovery, but the deep, creeping fear of inevitability. Somewhere in the darkness, laughter echoed, a reminder that the night belonged not to men, but to the shadows that watched, waited, and judged. And Harold, clever, arrogant Harold Vance, realized that tonight he had become exactly what he had always feared: prey. The storm intensified, and with it the city seemed to pulse like a living thing, breathing in the desperation and fear that clung to every alleyway, every rooftop, every cracked window. Harold's thoughts raced, but clarity was useless. The night had claimed its dominion, and he was trapped within it. Somewhere beyond the shadows the woman's presence lingered, a promise, a threat, a sentence yet to be served. And Harold, clutching the briefcase that was never his, understood that there was no cunning, no trick, no escape that could save him. The fatal caper had claimed its first and possibly last victim. Harold's world had narrowed to a single, chilling reality. The woman was no ordinary adversary. She was an embodiment of consequences, of fate, of death's patient, inexorable hand. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant siren, every whispering wind carried the message. The game was over, yet the punishment had only begun. And, as the first light of dawn threatened to pierce the murk, Harold Vance remained crouched in the shadows, shivering, haunted, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The dawn crept in reluctantly, its pale fingers brushing against the wet pavement, revealing a city still drowned in shadows and mist. Harold Vance remained where he had fallen, knees pressed to his chest, the briefcase ominously close. The night had left him raw, shivering, and painfully aware of every misstep he had ever taken. Each breath was a labor, each heartbeat a drumbeat of judgment. Yet even in the cold light, the courtyard felt alive, almost sentient. The bricks beneath him seemed to pulse faintly, as though the ground itself remembered every crime he had committed, every betrayal he had left in his wake. He forced himself to rise, legs trembling, arms heavy with fatigue. The briefcase, once merely a prize, now felt like a lodestone of guilt, a magnet pulling him deeper into a darkness he could not escape. Harold glanced around the courtyard, noting every shadow, every corner, every crack in the walls. But there was no sign of her, the woman with impossibly black eyes, the agent of fate who had turned his life into a twisted maze. The absence was suffocating, a vacuum filled with anticipation, warning, and an unspoken threat. With a reluctant resolve, he hoisted the briefcase and stumbled toward the nearest exit. The streets beyond were eerily quiet, deserted in a way that felt deliberate, calculated. The city had become a labyrinth designed to confuse, to disorient, to punish. Harold moved cautiously, every step measured, every sense alert. He felt eyes upon him, though whether they were human or something else, he could not tell. Each shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally, twisting and coiling around the edges of perception, whispering threats in a language he almost understood but could not fully grasp. By mid-morning, Harold found himself in the derelict remains of an old theater, its once grand marquee now shattered and rusting, letters dangling like broken teeth. He had chosen it deliberately, thinking the ruins would provide a temporary refuge, a place to regroup and reassess. But even here, the atmosphere was oppressive. Dust hung thick in the air, mingling with the faint smell of decay and forgotten paint. The seats were torn, the curtains moth-eaten, the stage warped from decades of neglect. Yet, in the silence, Harold sensed a presence, subtle but undeniable, like a heartbeat in the walls. He placed the briefcase on a collapsed velvet seat and examined it carefully. The biometric lock had been disabled, but Harold knew it was not by his hand. The artifact inside pulsed faintly, a subtle vibration that seemed almost alive. Harold's instincts screamed at him to leave it, to abandon the prize and flee, but the pull of greed and curiosity was irresistible. He opened it, revealing a small, ornate box carved from a black wood that seemed to absorb light. Intricate symbols danced across its surface, shapes that defied logic and geometry, writhing faintly as though breathing. Harold's fingers hovered over the box. Something in its design, its aura, felt familiar, an echo from the past he could not place. He ignored the warnings, lifted the lid, and immediately felt a sharp pain in his temples. A voice, soft and lilting, echoed in his mind, not through his ears, but through the very fibers of thought. "You should not have opened it," it whispered. "Every desire has a price. Every theft demands a reckoning." Harold staggered, clutching his head. The theater seemed to warp around him, the walls stretching, the floor trembling. Shadows crept along the ceiling, forming grotesque shapes, faces twisted in anguish, eyes wide with silent screams. He forced himself to focus, to remember that he was Harold Vance, the clever, the uncatchable, the thief who had never failed. Yet the voice in his head was persistent, relentless, carrying a weight that no cleverness could deflect. He shut the box abruptly, panting, eyes darting around the theater. But the sensation did not fade. The shadows persisted, crawling toward him with an almost imperceptible hunger. He felt them brush his skin, icy and insistent, as if trying to claim him. Harold realized with dawning horror that this was no ordinary artifact, no mere prize. It was a vessel, a trap, a key to a world he did not understand and could never escape. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. The passage of time was unreliable here. Harold explored the theater cautiously, searching for an exit or a clue, anything that could provide a semblance of control. The stage beckoned, a warped reflection of reality, and on it a single chair sat, facing the empty hall. On the chair was a note, written in a delicate, almost elegant hand. "The path you seek is beneath the surface, where shadows are born and secrets die." Harold's pulse quickened. He scanned the floorboards, the walls, the cracks in the ceiling. After a tense moment, he found a trap door, nearly invisible, cleverly disguised as part of the warped floor. With a deep breath, he lifted it, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The air rising from below smelled of damp earth and something more, something metallic, sharp, and tangibly wrong. He descended, the briefcase clutched tightly in one hand, the other brushing against the cold, rough walls for support. The staircase seemed endless, spiraling downward into a subterranean chamber that pulsed faintly with the same unnatural rhythm as the box. When he reached the bottom, he found himself in a vast cavern, the ceiling lost in darkness, walls lined with jagged rock and strange carvings that seemed almost alive. The briefcase throbbed in response, a heartbeat in a world that had none. In the center of the chamber stood the woman, her black eyes glowing faintly, reflecting the light from the briefcase. She did not move to attack, did not speak, but simply observed, an eternal judge in this theater of shadows. Harold swallowed hard, trying to muster his arrogance, the confidence that had always served him so well. "You follow too easily," she said finally, her voice echoing in the cavern, reverberating off the stone like a chant. "Greed blinds you, curiosity kills you, and yet you are not yet mine." Harold's hands shook. "Then what do you want from me?" he asked, his voice surprisingly small. "Understanding," she replied, "and suffering, but mostly understanding." The briefcase vibrated violently, the box within glowing faintly. Harold realized then that the artifact was not simply a vessel, it was a mirror, reflecting not just desire but the soul, every flaw, every sin magnified to unbearable clarity. He felt himself unravel, memories and fears bleeding into the present, the weight of every past crime pressing upon him. And through it all, the woman watched, a constant, merciless presence. He stumbled back, nearly dropping the briefcase. The chamber seemed to shift around him, walls stretching, floor rippling as though reality itself were mocking him. The woman stepped forward, and with each step, the air grew colder, the darkness thicker, pressing into Harold's very bones. "You think you are clever," she said softly, almost kindly. "But cleverness cannot save you from yourself." Harold's mind raced. He thought of escape, of running back up the staircase, of abandoning the briefcase. But the artifact seemed fused to his will. Impossible to leave behind. Impossible to discard. He realized then that this was the true caper, the fatal caper, and he was not the thief, but the prey. He tried to run, but the cavern responded, paths twisting into dead ends, shadows rising to block his way. Panic surged, sharp and relentless, and Harold realized with grim clarity that every choice he had ever made had led him to this moment, to this chamber, to her. The woman's presence was absolute, her power undeniable, and for the first time, Harold Vance felt truly helpless. The briefcase vibrated again, the box within pulsing, glowing brighter, the symbols twisting faster, almost impatiently. Harold's head ached, his vision blurred, and he fell to his knees. The woman knelt beside him, placing a cold, almost tender hand on his shoulder. "This is the beginning," she whispered. "The beginning of what you must endure, and the beginning of what you must understand. The fatal caper is not over, Harold Vance, it has only begun." Harold felt the weight of her words like a physical blow, pressing him into the cavern floor. And as the glow from the artifact intensified, as the shadows writhed and danced like living things, he realized that the city above, the streets, the alleys, the night, none of it mattered. Here, in this subterranean prison of light and shadow, he was at the mercy of forces far beyond his comprehension. The box opened by itself, revealing a swirling darkness inside, a void that seemed to pull at his very essence. Harold's reflection appeared within it, not as he was, but as a series of fractured selves, each one more grotesque, more flawed, more humanly helpless than the last. He screamed, a sound swallowed immediately by the cavern, as he was forced to confront not just the artifact, not just the woman, but himself. And in that scream, Harold Vance understood. The fatal caper was not a heist, not a theft, not even a game. It was an initiation, a reckoning, a sentence pronounced long before he had ever touched the briefcase, and the sentence had only begun to be executed. Harold Vance fell forward, face almost touching the cold stone of the cavern floor, his breath ragged, lungs aching from the terror that had overtaken him. The artifact pulsed, an alien heartbeat synchronized with his own, dragging him deeper into its unnatural rhythm. Each pulse sent shivers down his spine, reverberating through every nerve in his body, and Harold felt the crushing weight of inevitability settle over him like a stone slab. He tried to scramble to his feet, but the cavern seemed alive, its walls closing in and stretching outward at once, twisting him into an unrecognizable space where every familiar landmark of logic and reason dissolved. Above, the city continued its indifferent pulse, oblivious to the struggle beneath its streets. Cars honked faintly in the distance, construction cranes groaned, and somewhere a train rattled along its tracks. But these were echoes of a world Harold no longer inhabited. He was suspended in a nightmare dimension, trapped between shadow and light, predator and prey, sin and consequence. The woman with the black eyes watched him without movement, her expression unreadable, her presence absolute. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, yet he knew in the pit of his gut that there was nowhere to run. The artifact began to hum, a low, resonant vibration that penetrated the bones and rattled the teeth. Symbols on its surface shimmered, twisting in ways that defied Euclidean logic, forming shapes that should not exist. Harold's mind strained to comprehend them, to extract some meaning, some escape, but the closer he looked, the more incoherent they became. Time itself seemed fractured. Minutes stretched into hours, hours compressed into moments, and Harold had no anchor, no point of reference, no hope. "You see yourself clearly now," the woman said, her voice echoing in multiple dimensions at once, layered, distorted, beautiful, terrible. Every misdeed, every betrayal, every fleeting moment of selfishness, and still you clutch the prize. Still you believe in the illusion of control. Harold's hands shook as he gripped the briefcase. "It's just an object," he muttered, trying to convince himself. "I can take it, sell it, profit. That's all it is." The woman's smile was faint, cruelly amused. "You are naive. Objects do not call fate upon themselves. Men do, with every choice, every theft, every lie. And you, Harold Vance, have been calling for this moment your entire life. Harold tried to turn away, to hide from the truths she reflected, but the artifact glowed brighter, casting distorted shadows that clawed at him like living hands. He felt the pull of every decision he had ever made, the lives he had ruined, the greed that had driven him through alleys, through crime, through betrayal. Every mistake was a thread in a tapestry of horror, and now that tapestry was unraveling, dragging him into a vortex of judgment he could not escape. "You think cleverness will save you?" she asked, stepping closer. Her presence radiated a cold certainty, like ice forming around his very heart. "You have outsmarted men. You have stolen from kings. But no one outsmarts what is older than the city, older than men, older than the concept of sin." Harold's mind raced. He had faced countless threats, rival thieves, crooked cops, desperate criminals, but none of them had filled him with the raw, gnawing terror that now consumed him. This was not a threat he could negotiate with, not a rival he could fight, not a trap he could escape through skill or cunning. This was a reckoning. A force that measured worth, greed, and sin, and imposed its judgment with absolute impartiality. The cavern shivered, and Harold stumbled backward. Shadows stretched from the walls and floor, merging with the artifact's glow to form visions, scenes from his past, distorted and exaggerated, showing every transgression. He saw the faces of men and women he had wronged, their eyes wide with pain and accusation, their mouths open in silent screams. The visions lashed at him, pulling him into their reality, and Harold realized with a cold clarity that these were not illusions. They were memories made tangible, trapped in the very essence of the artifact he had coveted. "No," he whispered, backing away, voice trembling. "This isn't real. I can walk away. I can sell it. I can—" "You cannot," she interrupted. "You are part of it now. The fatal caper is no longer a choice. It is your destiny." Harold's knees hit the stone again as he fell, clutching the briefcase to his chest. His vision blurred with tears he did not recognize as such, his body shaking with a mixture of fear, rage, and desperation. He wanted to throw the artifact away, to abandon it to the darkness, but as he tried, a force, magnetic, unyielding, pulled it back, fusing it with his will. The briefcase was no longer merely an object. It had become a part of him, a tether binding him to this nightmare. The woman moved closer, and the cavern seemed to grow smaller with her approach. Her eyes glimmered like obsidian mirrors, reflecting Harold's terror, reflecting the endless corridors of his guilt. "Do you understand now?" she asked softly, almost kindly. "The world is simple, Harold. Desire leads to consequence. Greed leads to ruin. Theft leads to judgment. And now you are at the mercy of forces far beyond comprehension." Harold shook his head violently. "I don't understand. I'm clever. I'm smart. I can fix this." "You misunderstand," she said. "There is nothing to fix. There is only endurance, only realization, and, perhaps, repentance." Harold's pulse raced, adrenaline mingling with a profound exhaustion. He looked at the briefcase, at the swirling darkness within, and understood the paradox. He had sought the prize to enrich himself, to prove his skill, to assert control over fate itself. But now, in the artifact's presence, he realized that control had been an illusion. The woman, the cavern, the pulsing box, they had been waiting, patient, inevitable for someone like him to fall into their trap. A sudden noise echoed through the cavern, faint at first, then growing, a scraping, a whisper, a chant-like resonance that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Shadows began to coalesce, forming shapes that were almost human, yet grotesque, distorted, expressions frozen in eternal terror. Harold stumbled backward, tripping over uneven stone, his hands brushing against the cold, slick floor. The briefcase pulsed violently, almost as if it were alive, matching the rhythm of his panicked heartbeat. The woman raised a hand, and the shadows froze. Silence fell abruptly, an oppressive, suffocating silence that pressed into every corner of the cavern. Harold's chest heaved, lungs burning, and for a moment he thought he might collapse from sheer exhaustion. Yet even in that moment, a part of him, the part that had survived countless heists, countless narrow escapes, fought back. He forced himself to stand, to face the woman, to confront the inescapable. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, voice trembling but defiant. "I want you to see yourself," she replied, "to face the truth you have long evaded. Every crime, every lie, every betrayal, it all culminates here. You cannot run. You cannot cheat. You can only endure and understand." Harold's mind reeled. Endure? Understand? The words were foreign, incomprehensible in their simplicity, yet carrying a weight that pressed upon his very soul. He felt the pulse of the artifact beneath his hands, felt it probing, exploring, reflecting, revealing. The visions returned, more vivid, more terrifying, each one a shard of reality he had ignored, a consequence he had evaded, a debt he had never paid. And then, as he sank to his knees once more, the cavern shifted. Walls expanded and contracted. The floor rose and fell, and Harold realized with a sickening clarity that he was not merely in a place but within a structure that responded to his fear, to his thoughts, to his very essence. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought shaped the space, and the space, in turn, shaped him. "You see now," the woman whispered, stepping closer, her presence a living weight pressing into him. "Cleverness will not save you. Strength will not save you. Only acknowledgement, only acceptance, only reckoning." Harold's fingers trembled as he pressed them to the box, feeling the hum, the pulse, the almost sentient awareness within. His mind swam with memories, regrets, choices, lies, thefts, betrayals, all coalescing into a singular, unbearable truth. The fatal caper was never about the prize. It was about him, about everything he had done, about the man he had become. The shadows shifted again, forming a tunnel, a path forward through the twisting cavern. Harold understood that he had a choice, though it was an illusion. The path led deeper into the darkness, into the unknown, toward consequences yet unseen, toward trials he could not anticipate, toward understanding he could barely comprehend. Clutching the briefcase, he rose unsteadily and stepped forward. Each movement was agony. Each step a battle against the pull of the cavern, against the weight of his sins, against the suffocating presence of the woman. Yet, with every step, he felt a strange clarity, a terrifying awareness that this journey was his alone, that the fatal caper had ensnared him utterly, irrevocably, and that there would be no turning back. The cavern seemed to stretch infinitely, each step forward folding upon itself, looping, twisting, creating a labyrinth that was both physical and mental. Harold's thoughts raced, memories collided, and the pulse of the artifact guided him, relentless, inexorable. He realized at last that he was not simply moving through space. He was moving through judgment, through reflection, through a gauntlet of consequences designed to break him down, piece by piece, until only truth remained. And behind him, the woman watched, silent, patient, eternal, a reminder that the game was not over, that the reckoning had only begun, and that Harold Vance had only just entered the deepest, darkest phase of the fatal caper. Harold's steps echoed faintly in the cavern, a hollow rhythm that mingled with the pulsing glow of the artifact he still clutched tightly. The tunnel stretched endlessly before him, walls undulating like the surface of a dark ocean. Shadows moved independently, stretching and twisting in ways that defied physics, whispering secrets in voices that were eerily familiar yet entirely alien. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to turn back, to abandon the path, but he knew deep down that the journey had already claimed him. There was no retreat, no escape, only forward into the labyrinth of judgment that the woman had set before him. The artifact pulsed faster now, almost impatiently, as though it recognized the urgency of the path ahead. Harold's mind was a whirl of fragmented thoughts and memories, his entire life laid bare in a rapid, unrelenting cascade. Faces of men and women he had betrayed flickered through his consciousness like the pages of a cursed book. Each one stared at him, eyes wide, silently demanding justice. Their unspoken accusations pierced him more effectively than any bullet could, more painfully than any prison sentence. The weight of his past pressed against his skull, making each step forward a struggle of sheer willpower. He rounded a corner, and the tunnel widened into a chamber, vast and impossible. Stalactites hung from a ceiling that vanished into darkness, and the floor was slick with moisture that reflected the eerie light of the artifact in fractured, disorienting patterns. In the center of the chamber stood a pool of black water, smooth as glass, yet pulsing faintly with an inner rhythm that echoed the heartbeat of the artifact. Harold hesitated, sensing that this was no ordinary pool. It radiated malevolence, a living presence that seemed to watch him, judging him with silent, unwavering eyes. The woman was there, standing at the edge of the pool, her black eyes reflecting the distorted glow of the artifact. She did not move toward him, did not speak, yet the air between them vibrated with unspoken command. Harold's throat went dry. He had expected confrontation, struggle, perhaps even escape, but this was different. This was observation, patience, a silent test. "You have come far," she said finally, her voice a soft echo that seemed to emanate from all directions at once. "But the path is only beginning. The choices you make now will determine what you become and whether you survive the final reckoning." Harold's fingers tightened around the briefcase. "Survive? I've survived everything else. This is just another challenge. I can handle it." She tilted her head, the faintest smile playing across her lips, a smile that promised pain and revelation in equal measure. "You misunderstand. Survival is irrelevant. Understanding is essential. You must see the truth of your actions, the essence of your greed, the consequences of your desire. Only then will the caper reach its conclusion." The black water rippled, and Harold realized with dawning horror that the reflections within it were not simple images. They were moving, alive, depicting scenes from his past, heists, betrayals, close escapes, every moral compromise he had ever made. Faces appeared in the water, twisted and contorted, screaming silently as they reached toward him. The artifact's glow intensified, casting jagged shadows that writhed across the cavern walls, merging with the reflections to form a chaotic tapestry of judgment. Harold stepped closer, compelled by equal parts fear and curiosity. The reflections shifted, focusing on specific moments. The first time he had stolen from a friend, the first lie that had set him on a path of manipulation and theft, the countless moments when he had prioritized gain over humanity. Each image struck him with the force of revelation, tearing open old wounds, forcing him to confront aspects of himself he had long ignored or suppressed. "You cannot hide from yourself," the woman said, her tone calm, inexorable. "Every act, every thought, every intention is here. The caper has always been about more than the artifact. It has been about you, Harold Vance, about what you have done and what you have yet to face." Harold's knees buckled as the weight of his reflection pressed upon him. He fell to the edge of the pool, staring into the black water. The images writhed, focusing now on the people whose lives he had shattered for profit, the lovers he had betrayed, the partners he had discarded when they became inconvenient. Their faces were twisted not only with anger, but with sorrow, disappointment, and a silent, unyielding demand for acknowledgement. He tried to look away, tried to avert his gaze, but the artifact pulsed insistently, almost violently, demanding he see, understand, and accept. The shadows on the cavern wall shifted, forming hands, faces, and shapes that mirrored the reflections in the water. Harold realized then that the entire chamber was a manifestation of his conscience, amplified and materialized by the artifact and the woman's presence. "Why me?" he whispered, voice trembling. "Why now? I've always survived, always outsmarted everyone. I can handle danger, manipulation, betrayal. I can handle anything. You misunderstand the nature of what stands before you," she replied. "This is not danger, not manipulation, not betrayal. This is consequence, the inevitable return of every choice you have ever made. You cannot outsmart it, Harold. You can only face it. You can only endure it." The water rippled violently, and the images coalesced into a single, impossible scene. Harold's life laid bare as a continuous thread, every triumph intertwined with every moral compromise. The briefcase vibrated in his hands, almost as if urging him to understand the full scope of his actions. Harold felt nausea rise, not from the sight itself, but from the overwhelming awareness that every act of cleverness, every stolen item, every betrayal had not only shaped his life, but had also summoned this reckoning. "You are clever," the woman said softly, stepping closer. "You have survived the streets, the men, the law, but cleverness cannot undo what has been done. The caper does not reward cunning, it rewards understanding." Harold's mind reeled. Understanding? He had understood cunning, risk, timing, escape. He had understood men and their weaknesses. But understanding himself, understanding the weight of his own choices, that was a lesson far crueler, far more demanding than anything he had faced before. The shadows seemed to shift closer, pressing against him, forming a corridor leading deeper into the chamber. Harold realized with a shiver that the path forward was no longer merely a tunnel. It was a gauntlet, a trial through the manifestation of his own sins. Each step he took sent ripples through the reflections in the water, each movement a small acknowledgement of the life he had lived, the choices he had made. With a deep, shuddering breath, Harold rose and stepped into the corridor formed by shadows. The walls seemed to pulse, responding to his fear, his hesitation, his growing awareness. Each step forward was agony, a mixture of terror and revelation, and yet he moved, compelled by an instinct he could not deny. The briefcase remained clutched tightly, its pulse in sync with his own, as if it were both a guide and a tether to the reckoning he had initiated. The woman followed silently, her presence a constant reminder that this was not a game, not a negotiation, not a choice. Harold realized that she was both observer and enforcer, witness and executor of the caper's inevitable progression. He wanted to plead, to bargain, to appeal to whatever humanity remained within her, but the understanding that such pleas were meaningless settled over him like ice. At the corridor's end, a door of blackened metal and ancient carving stood, impossibly large, yet inviting. The shadows seemed to push him toward it, almost guiding him, almost compelling him. Harold hesitated, fingers trembling as he reached for the handle. The artifact pulsed violently, casting distorted light across the carvings, and for a moment Harold thought he could hear whispers, voices from the past, echoes of those he had wronged, calling, accusing, demanding, reckoning. He gripped the handle and pulled. The door swung open silently, revealing another chamber, larger, darker, impossibly vast. The air was colder here, denser, almost sentient. The black water from the previous chamber had multiplied, forming pools and streams that wound through the room like veins of darkness. The reflections within each pool were no longer just his past. They were fragments of potential futures, each one more horrifying, more grotesque, more inevitable than the last. Harold swallowed hard, stepping forward. The woman remained at the entrance, her black eyes reflecting the artifact's light, her expression unreadable. "Step forward, Harold Vance," she said. "The next phase begins. The caper demands more than cleverness. It demands revelation, endurance, and the courage to confront the totality of your existence." Harold's chest heaved, sweat and fear mingling on his skin. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to abandon the briefcase, to deny the reality unfolding around him. But deep down he understood that flight was impossible. Understanding, endurance, confrontation, these were the only paths forward. And so, with trembling legs and a heart weighed down by terror, he stepped into the next chamber, knowing that each step would test him further, shape him more painfully, and bring him closer to the ultimate truth of the fatal caper. The chamber swallowed Harold whole, a cavernous expanse that seemed to stretch into infinity. Pools of black water snaked across the floor like living veins, their surfaces reflecting fractured versions of himself, each one twisted, grotesque, accusing. The air was thick, almost viscous, pressing against him, forcing each breath to be a conscious effort. The artifact pulsed violently in his hands, its glow illuminating the carved walls. each line, each symbol seeming to writhe with a life of its own. Harold took a cautious step forward, feeling the shadows reach toward him, curling and writhing like serpents eager to taste his fear. Every movement seemed to ripple through the room, disturbing the reflections in the pools, creating cascading images of deeds he had long buried. Theft, deceit, betrayal, every act, no matter how small or insignificant at the time, was magnified, laid bare in the unflinching light of the artifact. He felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly powerless. "You see yourself." The woman's voice resonated again, echoing from every shadow, every reflection. "Every choice, every crime, every moment you have evaded responsibility, and yet you cling to what you believe gives you control." Harold's fingers tightened around the briefcase. "Control," he said bitterly. "I've always had it. I've survived. I've outsmarted men and women far smarter than me. I can handle this too." She stepped forward from the darkness, her black eyes glimmering like twin obsidian stars. "Do you think cleverness can shield you from inevitability? Do you think skill can protect you from the truth of your own life?" Harold's legs trembled, but he pressed onward, stepping carefully between the pools. Each reflection seemed to react to him, shifting, changing, displaying scenes not only from his past but possible futures, dark, terrifying, irrevocable. He saw himself trapped, alone, consumed by the consequences of every selfish act. The reflections whispered in voices he recognized, some his own, some belonging to those he had wronged. The words were fragments, accusations, and curses, blending into a deafening symphony of guilt. The artifact pulsed faster now, almost in sync with his own racing heartbeat. Harold's mind reeled. He realized that the object had become more than a prize. It was a lens, a magnifier of his conscience, a mirror revealing every hidden corner of his soul. He could no longer separate the world outside from the reflections within. They were intertwined, impossible to distinguish, and every step forward forced him to confront a deeper layer of his failures and desires. A sudden movement caught his eye. One of the reflections moved independently, detaching from its pool, forming a shadowy figure that mirrored his every action. The figure's eyes glowed with a pale light, and Harold recognized the expression immediately. It was his own face, twisted in fear and rage. The shadow moved closer, a silent, relentless predator, forcing Harold to confront the consequences of his own choices in a form he could not avoid. "Why?" Harold shouted, his voice echoing unnaturally through the chamber. "Why me? Why now? I've survived everything. I've always been clever enough to escape danger." The woman's laughter, soft and melodic, filled the space. "Because it was never about escape, Harold. It was about reckoning. Cleverness is a weapon in the streets, a tool in the game of men, but here, it is meaningless. The fatal caper does not reward skill. It demands understanding, endurance, and surrender to truth." Harold's legs gave way, and he sank to the cold floor. The shadow mimicked him perfectly, crouching beside him, pressing impossibly close. He felt the weight of all his decisions pressing down, suffocating, as if the very air had become gravity, dragging him into the abyss of his own conscience. The artifact vibrated violently, thrumming with a pulse that echoed through his chest. He tried to scream, tried to cast the briefcase aside, but the force tethered it to him, binding him to this ordeal. Every instinct screamed for flight, for denial, for escape, but the cavern allowed none. Harold realized then that this was not merely a punishment. It was an education, a forced immersion into the reality of every act he had ever performed. "You cannot run," the woman said softly, kneeling beside him. Her presence was overwhelming, a pressure that seemed to bend the space around him. "You cannot hide. You must endure, you must witness, and you must understand. Only then will the caper reach its conclusion." The pools of water began to ripple, one after another, sending waves that lapped against Harold's feet. The reflections grew more vivid, more detailed, each one a scene from a life he had constructed through deception and theft. He saw the consequences of his greed laid bare, the lives ruined, the trust broken, the moments of opportunity lost to selfish desire. Each vision was a mirror to his soul, unflinching, merciless, undeniable. Harold pressed the briefcase against his chest, trying to anchor himself, trying to hold on to a fragment of reality he understood. But the artifact pulsed violently, almost as if mocking his efforts. It demanded he confront more, see more, and feel more. Shadows coiled around him, whispering, urging, pressing him into an unrelenting introspection that left no room for denial. "Do you understand yet?" the woman asked, her voice calm, patient, unyielding. "This is the essence of the fatal caper. It was never about theft, about riches, about survival. It is about revelation. Every choice you have made has led you here. Every lie, every betrayal, every theft has built the path that brought you to this moment. You cannot escape it." Harold's head throbbed, his thoughts a chaotic storm. He realized that every skill, every trick, every heist had been meaningless in this space. There was no cunning, no negotiation, no escape. Only reflection, only truth, only the terrifying weight of understanding. He sank further to the floor, gripping the artifact like a lifeline, the shadows pressing ever closer, the reflections intensifying, forming a kaleidoscope of fear, guilt, and revelation. The woman rose, stepping back into the shadows, letting Harold absorb the full weight of the chamber. "Endure," she said simply. "Walk the path, face yourself, and perhaps you will find clarity." Harold forced himself to his feet, staggering, legs weak, body trembling. The corridor of shadows stretched before him, the pools of reflection lining the walls like silent sentinels. With each step, he felt the pulse of the artifact in his hands, a rhythm both alien and intimately tied to his own heartbeat. The shadows whispered, not with voices of accusation this time, but with guidance, urging him forward, deeper into the labyrinth that was both physical and moral. He moved slowly, painfully, every step a trial. The reflections in the pools shifted, now showing not only past deeds but potential outcomes of choices yet to be made. Harold realized with a cold clarity that every act moving forward would be scrutinized, judged, integrated into the tapestry of his existence. The fatal caper was not merely retrospective. It was predictive, molding his understanding of consequence in real time, demanding awareness, demanding insight, demanding surrender to truth. The woman's voice echoed from the shadows once more. "Do not falter. Do not deny. This path is yours, and yours alone. Every step forward is an act of revelation. Every acknowledgement of truth is a step closer to understanding. You will endure, Harold Vance, or you will be consumed." The artifact glowed brighter, casting jagged, pulsating shadows that seemed to reach into Harold's very soul. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to move forward, each step a defiance of fear, a confrontation of guilt, a negotiation with reality itself. The pools of black water mirrored him, distorted, reflecting both his terror and the fragments of understanding that slowly, painfully, began to crystallize in his mind. And, as he walked, the shadows whispered, the reflections shifted, the artifact pulsed, and Harold Vance understood that the fatal caper was no longer a mere heist. It was a journey into the depths of his own existence, a confrontation with every act, every desire, every betrayal, every lie. And only by enduring it, by understanding it, by embracing the full weight of his choices, could he hope to survive what lay ahead. Harold's legs shook with exhaustion, muscles screaming in protest, yet he forced himself to continue forward. The corridor stretched endlessly, its walls alive with shadows that pulsed and writhed as if breathing. Each pool of black water along the path mirrored not only his past but entire lifetimes of choices, some real, some hypothetical, each one converging to form a mosaic of his existence. He realized that the fatal caper was no longer merely a punishment. It was a living, evolving entity, feeding on reflection, demanding understanding, shaping his consciousness with every step. The artifact in his hands throbbed in tandem with his heartbeat, sending vibrations that resonated through his chest, through his bones, into his very soul. The briefcase had ceased being a mere container of stolen treasures. It had become a conduit, a focus point for the labyrinth's judgment. Harold's fingers were numb, the pulsing rhythm of the artifact blurring the line between his own awareness and the labyrinth's will. Every step forward was agony, every reflection a dagger, every whisper a verdict. He stumbled over a jagged stone protruding from the floor and nearly fell into one of the black pools. The surface rippled, and the reflection that stared back was not just his own, it was his own face. Older, hardened, twisted with every wrong choice he had ever made, every betrayal, every act of greed, magnified into something monstrous. Harold recoiled, stumbling backward into another pool, and the water hissed like a living thing, as if recognizing his fear. "You resist understanding." The woman's voice came from the darkness above, echoing across the chamber. Her form was barely discernible, a shadow among shadows, yet her presence filled the entire space. "You resist what you must confront. Each step forward is meant to reveal, not conceal. The caper does not reward denial." Harold's chest heaved, lungs burning, sweat pouring from his brow. I don't understand. I've survived every challenge. I've outwitted every rival, every trap. Why does this matter?" She stepped closer, and suddenly the shadows shifted, converging into an archway that seemed to lead deeper into the labyrinth. "It matters because cleverness is irrelevant here. The fatal caper is not a game of skill or deception. It is a reckoning, a journey into the consequences of desire, greed, and self-deception. You are both participant and subject. Every thosa sur sorcerer editos. Sambahi. Was det så siger sig dit sig så sig desire. SCF. Uri. Be. If he. Harold pressed the briefcase to his chest as if it were a shield. The pulsing glow seemed to respond to his fear, brightening and dimming with each anxious heartbeat. He moved forward cautiously, navigating the uneven floor, each pool of black water reflecting moments of his life with brutal clarity. Faces of former allies, betrayed friends, forgotten lovers and rivals haunted him in the reflections, their expressions silent but accusing, their eyes piercing into his soul. "Do you see now?" the woman asked, her voice melodic yet cold, echoing off the walls. "You believed you could manipulate the world. You thought theft, deceit, and cunning were sufficient. But the fatal caper has always been more than objects, more than riches, more than escape. It is a mirror of the self, a crucible where every flaw, every weakness, every moral failing is laid bare." Harold's knees buckled and he fell to the floor, briefly sliding into a shallow pool. The water's surface rippled violently, forming images of lives he had ruined, opportunities squandered, and moments of moral compromise. Each image was unbearably vivid, each one a reminder that cleverness and skill had never shielded him from the inevitable consequences of his actions. The artifact's pulse intensified, a relentless drumbeat that resonated deep within him, forcing him to acknowledge every truth he had ignored. He staggered to his feet, forcing his mind to focus. The shadows moved with him, not as attackers, but as guides, shaping a path through the labyrinth that twisted and bent in impossible directions. Harold realized that the labyrinth itself was sentient, responding to his emotions, reflecting his internal struggle, shaping reality to push him toward revelation. Every reflection, every whisper, every pulsing glow of the artifact was a test, a trial not of skill, but of endurance and honesty with oneself. "You resist," the woman said, appearing beside him suddenly, as if materializing from the shadows themselves. "You resist acknowledging the totality of your life. The caper demands it. It is not punishment, it is illumination. Every action, every theft, every betrayal has meaning here, Harold Vance. And now you must see it." Harold's hands shook violently as he held the briefcase. "See what? I've seen everything. I've lived it. I've survived it all. I can't." "Yes, you can," she interrupted. "Not by evasion, not by denial, not by flight. You can only endure, only confront, only integrate. The artifact reflects not just your past, but your potential futures. Every choice moving forward carries weight here, shaping outcomes and understanding alike. To survive the fatal caper, you must embrace this reality." He swallowed hard, legs weak, body trembling, and began moving forward again. The corridor narrowed slightly, the pools of black water multiplying and merging, forming twisting channels that mirrored impossible geometries. Reflections danced across the surfaces, showing moments of his life in non-linear sequences, events that overlapped and intertwined, forming patterns of cause and effect that were almost hypnotic in their complexity. Harold felt dizzy, disoriented, his perception of time and space fracturing under the weight of revelation. Suddenly, one reflection leapt from its pool, forming a shadowy figure that mirrored Harold's movements perfectly. Its eyes glowed with a pale, accusing light, and Harold felt a cold wave of recognition. It was himself, his sins made tangible, his greed embodied, his cunning twisted into a predator that reflected not skill, but consequence. Harold stumbled backward, nearly falling into another pool, but the artifact pulsed violently, anchoring him, forcing him to face the figure directly. "You cannot escape yourself," the woman said, her tone calm, unyielding, echoing from every shadow and reflection. "This is not merely a challenge, it is a revelation. You must confront your actions, accept their weight, and endure the truth. Only then will the caper reach its conclusion." Harold's vision swam with reflections, shadows, and light, each one a fragment of a life filled with both brilliance and corruption. He realized that the labyrinth was not simply a space. It was a manifestation of his conscience, amplified and made real, and the artifact was the conduit through which it reached its apex. Each step forward required not only physical endurance but emotional and moral confrontation. Every reflection was a test, every shadow a challenge, every pulse of the artifact a reminder that understanding demanded more than insight. It demanded surrender. He pressed onward, staggering through the twisting corridor, feeling the weight of every action he had ever taken pressing down upon him. The reflections grew more intense, more vivid, more unrelenting. Faces of those he had wronged stared silently, impossibly close, demanding acknowledgement. The shadow of himself followed relentlessly, matching every movement, a living reminder of the inescapable consequences of his choices. "Do not falter," the woman said, her voice softer now, almost gentle. "The path is yours. Every step, every acknowledgement, every confrontation brings you closer to understanding. You cannot cheat the caper. You can only endure it. Only by embracing the truth of your life can you hope to survive what comes next." Harold's legs burned, his lungs screamed, and sweat drenched his body, yet he pressed on. Each step was agony, each breath a battle, yet within him grew a strange clarity, a painful awareness that this was the only path. The pools of black water reflected not just past deeds, but potential consequences, branching infinitely, showing every divergence, every outcome shaped by his actions. He realized then that the caper was not a test of cleverness or skill. It was a crucible of the self, demanding honesty, courage, and endurance. The woman stepped back, allowing the labyrinth to continue its judgment unimpeded. Harold moved forward, guided by the pulse of the artifact and the shifting shadows. Every step demanded recognition. Every movement required confrontation, and every breath was a testament to his unwilling acceptance of the reckoning that had claimed him. And as he walked, the reflections twisted and converged, forming a single, towering vision. Harold Vance, surrounded by every consequence of his life, past and future intertwined, facing the full, unrelenting truth of the fatal caper. He understood at last that survival was not about escape, not about cleverness, not about skill. It was about understanding, endurance, and the courage to face himself without denial or evasion. Harold's legs were leaden, each step forward a monumental effort. The labyrinth seemed endless, its walls pulsating with shadows that writhed like living creatures, each ripple reflecting fragments of his life, betrayals, stolen treasures, abandoned friends, and lovers whose faces haunted him in the black water's mirrored depths. The artifact in his hands throbbed like a heartbeat, almost sentient, binding him to the twisting corridors and the relentless echoes of his own misdeeds. It had become more than a prize. It was a key, a tether, a beacon illuminating every hidden truth Harold had tried to bury. The corridors bent and warped around him, impossible geometries folding back upon themselves, pools of black water multiplying, merging, and shifting in tandem with his steps. Every reflection he passed intensified, showing not only his past but imagined futures, possibilities shaped by choices he had not yet made, each one twisting in ways both subtle and horrifying. The labyrinth was alive, feeding off his fear, his hesitation, his growing realization that every act he had committed had consequences far beyond his comprehension. "You continue." The woman's voice resonated from the shadows above, echoing in multiple dimensions at once. "You endure, you walk, you witness. Yet, understanding remains incomplete. The caper is not finished, Harold Vance. It evolves with you, shaping your perception, demanding revelation, pushing you toward the ultimate reckoning." Harold pressed the briefcase tighter against his chest. I understand enough. I've seen enough. I've confronted everything." His voice cracked, echoing unnaturally off the walls, swallowed almost immediately by the oppressive shadows. "No," she said softly, yet every syllable struck like a hammer. "Understanding is not merely seeing. It is feeling. It is enduring. It is acknowledging the full measure of your life, past and future, and accepting the weight of every choice. Only then can the caper reach its conclusion. Only then can you survive what comes next." A pool of black water erupted ahead, rippling violently as if reacting to her words. Images sprang to life on its surface. Harold's younger self, first learning the thrill of theft, the faces of friends he had deceived, some unaware of his betrayal, some destroyed by it, strangers whose lives had been upended by his cunning. Every image throbbed with energy, pulsating in rhythm with the artifact, binding him further into the labyrinth's reality. Harold's knees buckled and he fell forward, hands pressing into the cold, wet stone. The reflections seemed to reach for him, tendrils of shadow extending from the pools, curling around his limbs, whispering in voices both familiar and alien. Each whisper was a memory, a choice, a consequence, a demand for recognition. He gasped, heart hammering, lungs burning. Understanding fully for the first time the extent of his own entanglement with greed, deception, and self-interest. "You resist," the woman said, stepping closer from the shadows. Her presence radiated a force that pressed against him, tangible, inescapable. Every instinct of flight, every desire to deny, every plea for escape is meaningless here. The caper demands confrontation, endurance, and insight. You cannot cheat it, Harold Vance. You can only move forward, step by step, acknowledging every fragment of truth. Harold struggled to his feet, legs trembling violently. The artifact pulsed violently, casting jagged, shifting light across the walls, illuminating shadows that formed faces, hands, bodies, all echoes of his life's choices. He felt exposed, stripped bare, every trick, every lie, every theft displayed in exaggerated, grotesque clarity. Each step forward forced him to face the reality he had long denied, to confront the cumulative weight of his actions in a way that was almost unbearable. The shadows shifted ahead, forming a passage that twisted impossibly, leading into a chamber that seemed to bend gravity and perspective. Pools of black water flowed along the floor like rivers, reflecting both the past and possible futures, each ripple a choice made or avoided. Harold took a deep breath, forcing himself to step forward, feeling the pulse of the artifact echo through his chest, through his bones, through every nerve in his body. You see it now, the woman whispered, her voice melodic yet chilling. Every act, every desire, every betrayal has brought you here. The caper is not about the artifact, not about cleverness, not about survival in the conventional sense. It is about revelation, endurance, and the courage to face the totality of yourself. Harold's mind reeled. He remembered the thrill of the first theft, the first time he had deceived a friend for personal gain, the countless moments when greed and ambition had outweighed conscience. Every memory was magnified, intensified, made impossible to ignore. He felt the weight of each choice pressing down like a physical force, each step through the labyrinth an act of penance, a confrontation with truths long suppressed. A sudden ripple in one of the pools drew his attention. The reflection that emerged was not just his own. It was a version of him that had followed different paths, made different choices. In one reflection, he saw himself returning stolen items, apologizing, attempting to make amends. In another, he saw himself consumed by greed, isolated, hunted, broken by consequences he had ignored. Each reflection pulsed with life, almost sentient, showing him possibilities he could neither escape nor alter. "You are bound," the woman said, her voice surrounding him, echoing through the labyrinth. "Bound not by chains or walls, but by choices." The caper mirrors life in all its consequences. Every act matters, every decision resonates, every misdeed and every mercy builds the path. You walk it now, and you will continue until the reckoning is complete. Harold's hands shook violently, holding the artifact close. He wanted to scream, to throw it away, to run, to deny everything, but he realized with cold clarity that all attempts at evasion were futile. The labyrinth would not release him. The reflections, the shadows, the pools, the artifact. They were extensions of his own life, of the sum total of his decisions. Every attempt to resist only made the journey more painful, more urgent, more unavoidable. He pressed forward, each step forcing acknowledgement of the past, recognition of the present, and anticipation of the future. The shadows twisted, forming pathways, guiding him with silent insistence. The pools shimmered, each one reflecting a moment he had long forgotten, a choice he had once ignored, a face he had failed to respect. The labyrinth was teaching him, punishing him, revealing him in ways he could scarcely endure. "You endure because you must," the woman said, "because denial is impossible, because understanding is not optional. Every step, every heartbeat, every glance into the reflections is a step toward revelation. The caper is infinite, yet it moves forward through your comprehension, your acknowledgement, your surrender to the truth of your life." Harold staggered, nearly collapsing into a pool, but the artifact pulsed insistently, guiding him, tethering him to the path. The shadows reached out, brushing against him, not to harm, but to push, to direct, to remind him of the necessity of endurance. He realized that each step forward was both a trial and a salvation, a confrontation and a lesson, a test of his ability to face himself without evasion or excuse. The corridor narrowed further, walls bending at impossible angles, pools merging into rivers that flowed in geometries that defied reason. Harold pressed forward, breath ragged, body trembling, each pulse of the artifact synchronized with his own heartbeat. Every reflection, every shadow, every ripple in the water demanded recognition, demanded acknowledgement, demanded courage. "You are approaching the culmination," the woman said, her voice calm, yet filled with an authority that pressed into every corner of the labyrinth. "The caper nears its apex. What you see, what you endure, what you acknowledge will determine the shape of the reckoning. Continue, Harold Vance. Walk the path, embrace the truth, and face the consequences of every choice you have made." Harold swallowed, trembling, and stepped forward again. His eyes were fixed on the twisting corridor ahead, the pools of black water reflecting the totality of his existence, the shadows guiding him, the artifact pulsing with an unrelenting rhythm. Each step was agony, yet, with each step, a strange clarity began to emerge. The labyrinth, the reflections, the shadows, the artifact, All of it was not merely a punishment. It was an opportunity, a crucible, a test of endurance and understanding. And so Harold moved forward, step by agonizing step, deeper into the labyrinth of consequence, shadow, and revelation. Aware that the fatal caper was not merely a challenge of cunning or survival. It was a journey into the essence of his own life, and only by enduring it, by confronting every reflection, every memory, every shadow, could he hope to reach the next phase of the reckoning. The corridor narrowed further, the walls bending and folding in impossible geometries that made Harold feel as though he were walking through the very fabric of his own mind. Shadows clung to every surface, writhing and twisting with a life of their own, and the pools of black water reflected not only his past and possible futures, but now, somehow, the very essence of his fear. The artifact in his hands pulsed violently, a heartbeat synchronized with his own, yet it carried a rhythm that was alien, insistent, almost alive. Harold's legs ached, muscles trembling under the weight of exhaustion, yet he forced himself forward step by step. Every movement was a confrontation, a trial of endurance and revelation. Each pool he passed rippled violently, casting fragmented images across the walls, showing moments of his life that he had long tried to ignore. Faces of friends betrayed, enemies bested, innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire of his ambition. They stared silently, accusingly, their eyes burning into his very soul. "You continue," the woman's voice echoed, disembodied yet undeniably close, surrounding him from all directions. "You endure, you witness, you acknowledge. Yet understanding remains incomplete. The labyrinth demands total reckoning, Harold Vance. Every act, every choice, every thought you have ever held shapes what comes next." Harold's fingers tightened around the briefcase, knuckles white with tension. I've seen it all. I've endured. I've faced myself." His voice cracked, trembling with desperation, reverberating against the impossible angles of the corridor. "No," she replied, voice soft but sharp, cutting through the echoes like a blade. "Seeing is not understanding. Witnessing is not reconciliation. The fatal caper is not a matter of mere observation. It is a living crucible. It demands that you comprehend the weight of your choices, the consequences of every act, the truth of your own desires. Only through full acknowledgement can you move forward." The artifact pulsed more violently now, casting jagged shadows that seemed to reach into the depths of Harold's mind. He stumbled over a protruding stone, almost falling into a shallow pool, and the water reacted violently, sending ripples that distorted the reflections into grotesque forms. One image leapt from the surface, forming a shadow that mirrored Harold exactly, yet every feature was twisted with the consequences of his worst impulses: greed, cruelty, arrogance. The shadow reached out, silent but menacing, forcing Harold to confront the literal manifestation of his own darkness. "You cannot escape," the woman said, stepping closer from the shadows, her presence a tangible pressure that seemed to bend the very air around him. "Every instinct of denial, every desire to flee, every hope of evasion is meaningless. You are bound by your choices, Harold Vance. The caper reflects the totality of your existence, and it will not relent." Harold pressed the briefcase to his chest, feeling the artifact's pulse reverberate through his body, urging him onward. He staggered forward, every step an agony of recognition and fear. The corridor twisted and bent unnaturally, the shadows guiding him, the pools of black water reflecting infinite combinations of past and potential futures. Every ripple, every whisper, every distorted reflection demanded acknowledgement, demanded comprehension, demanded endurance. A sudden movement caught Harold's eye. One of the reflections detached from its pool entirely, forming a shadowy figure that matched his every move with perfect precision. Its eyes glowed faintly, accusingly, a pale mirror of his own. Harold froze, heart hammering, and the shadow mirrored his hesitation, pressing closer, a relentless reminder of the consequences he could no longer avoid. "Do you see it now?" The woman's voice was everywhere, gentle yet commanding. "This is not a test of skill, cunning, or survival. It is a reckoning. Every act, every desire, every lie and theft you have committed exists here, in this labyrinth, amplified and undeniable. You are both the subject and the participant, the observer and the judged. Harold's knees buckled and he sank to the cold stone floor, pressing the artifact to his chest as he tried to catch his breath. The pools rippled violently, the shadows writhed, and the reflection of himself twisted in ways that were almost unbearable to behold. He saw the faces of people he had wronged, their expressions a blend of sorrow, anger, and accusation, each one silently demanding recognition, justice, or apology. The weight of their silent judgment pressed upon him like a physical force, suffocating, relentless. "You endure because you must," the woman said, her voice calm, almost maternal in tone, yet imbued with an unyielding authority. "Denial is impossible. Escape is impossible. Only understanding, only confrontation, only acknowledgement of every act and every consequence will carry you forward. You must face the entirety of your life, Harold Vance, without evasion, without excuse." Harold forced himself to rise, legs trembling violently. The corridor narrowed even further, walls folding impossibly, shadows intertwining with the reflections to form a living tapestry of consequence and potential. The artifact pulsed violently in his hands, casting jagged, pulsating light that illuminated faces, memories, and moments long forgotten or deliberately suppressed. He moved forward cautiously, each step an act of courage, each breath a struggle. The pools reflected the intertwining paths of his life, the countless choices that had brought him to this point, and the manifold possibilities that could unfold depending on his actions moving forward. Harold realized with dawning clarity that the caper was not merely a punishment for the past, it was a dynamic judgment, evaluating every intention, every hesitation, every thought, and reshaping the labyrinth in response. "You resist understanding," the woman said, stepping closer, her presence merging with the shadows themselves. "You fear the full truth of your own life, but the caper is relentless. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact exists to compel you to see, to feel, to acknowledge. Only through this can the final reckoning be achieved." Harold's vision swam as the reflections converged, forming a swirling mosaic of past deeds and potential consequences. He saw himself making choices he had never made, witnessing outcomes he had never considered, each one a variation on a theme of greed, desire, survival, and betrayal. The shadow that mirrored him pressed closer, moving with an unnatural fluidity, a constant reminder of the darkness within, a living testament to the consequences he could no longer ignore. He pressed the briefcase against his chest, heart hammering, lungs burning, and forced himself forward. Each step became a negotiation with his own conscience, each breath an acknowledgement of reality, each glance into the pools a confrontation with truth. The labyrinth pulsed and shifted with every movement, a living, breathing entity that demanded engagement, endurance, and awareness. "You approach the culmination," the woman's voice echoed softly, omnipresent. "The caper nears its apex. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact has brought you here. Continue, Harold Vance. Confront, endure, understand. Only through this will the reckoning reach its conclusion." Harold staggered onward, muscles screaming, mind reeling from the intensity of the reflections and the shadows that pursued him. The corridor twisted further, impossible geometries folding reality in ways that defied comprehension. The pools rippled with scenes of his past, potential futures, and infinite variations of consequence. Every step forward was agony, yet within that agony he began to sense a faint clarity, a painful awareness that this path, this confrontation, was the only way forward. The artifact's pulse intensified, synchronizing with his heartbeat, guiding him deeper into the labyrinth of reflection, shadow, and revelation. Each ripple in the water, each movement of the shadows, each flicker of light cast by the artifact demanded acknowledgement, comprehension, and endurance. Harold realized that the fatal caper was not merely a journey through space or a challenge of cunning, It was a journey through the very essence of his existence, a crucible that required every ounce of courage and honesty he could muster. And as he moved, step by trembling step, he understood that the next chamber, the next trial, and the next revelation awaited him, and that only by embracing the totality of his life. Every act, every desire, every betrayal, could he hope to survive what lay ahead. Harold's body trembled with exhaustion, his muscles screaming in protest with every step. Yet he pressed onward. The corridor had narrowed into a tunnel that seemed impossibly long, walls bending and folding in unnatural angles that made the very act of walking a disorienting experience. Pools of black water multiplied along the floor, their surfaces reflective but warped, each one revealing fragments of his past with a cruel and exacting clarity. Faces of friends betrayed, lovers deceived, innocent bystanders ensnared in the consequences of his greed, they all stared back at him, their expressions accusing and unyielding, their silent judgment pressing down with a suffocating weight. The artifact pulsed violently in his hands, sending vibrations through his chest and spine. Harold's fingers clutched it desperately, feeling the thrum of its energy course through him, binding him to the labyrinth's impossible reality. He realized that the briefcase was no longer a vessel for stolen wealth. It was a conduit, a lens through which the fatal caper revealed its true purpose: to force confrontation with every choice, every act, every moment of self-interest and cruelty he had ever committed. "You continue," the woman's voice echoed from the shadows, omnipresent and disembodied, wrapping around him like a living thing. "You endure, you witness, you acknowledge. Yet, understanding remains incomplete. The labyrinth evolves with your every thought, Harold Vance. Every hesitation, every fear, every act of denial feeds it, shaping your path and the revelations to come." Harold's knees buckled under the weight of exhaustion, and he pressed the artifact against his chest. I've endured. I've faced it all." His voice trembled, breaking as it echoed unnaturally through the twisted tunnel. "No," the woman replied softly, her voice a blade cutting through the shadows. "Seeing is not understanding. Witnessing is not reckoning. The caper is a living crucible. It demands full acknowledgement, complete comprehension, and the courage to face every consequence, every truth, every shadow within yourself. Only then can the path forward be revealed." The pools of black water shifted violently, and one reflection detached from its surface entirely, coalescing into a shadow that mirrored Harold with grotesque fidelity. Its eyes glowed faintly, accusingly, and every feature was distorted to reflect the consequences of his darkest impulses: greed, cruelty, arrogance. The shadow advanced silently, a relentless reminder of the part of him he could no longer ignore or evade. "You cannot escape," the woman intoned, stepping closer, her presence pressing down on him with tangible weight. Every instinct to deny, every hope to flee, every plea for reprieve is meaningless. You are bound by your choices, Harold Vance. The labyrinth, the reflections, the artifact, they are extensions of your life, and they will not release you until you acknowledge everything. Harold forced himself to rise, legs trembling violently. The corridor twisted further, impossible angles forming around him, shadows merging with reflections to create a living, breathing tapestry of consequence. The artifact pulsed with a relentless rhythm, illuminating moments from his life in stark, unflinching clarity. Faces of those he had wronged stared silently, demanding recognition, justice, acknowledgement. He moved forward cautiously, each step a negotiation with his own conscience. The labyrinth shifted with every movement, a sentient force that demanded engagement and endurance. The pools reflected not only past actions but potential futures, branching infinitely, showing what could come if he continued along the path of greed and selfishness, and what might be possible if he embraced understanding, acknowledgement, and acceptance. "You resist," the woman said, her voice flowing around him like water. "You fear the truth of yourself, but the caper is relentless. It will not be denied. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact exists to compel you to confront, to endure, and to acknowledge. Only through full engagement can you hope to survive." Harold's vision swam as the reflections converged, forming a kaleidoscope of past deeds and potential consequences. He saw himself making choices he had never made, witnessing outcomes he had never considered, each one a variant of greed, desire, and survival, each one illustrating consequences he could not escape. The shadow that mirrored him pressed ever closer, moving fluidly, silently, a living testament to the darkness within, a constant reminder that every choice carried weight far beyond what he had previously imagined. He pressed the briefcase to his chest, heart hammering, lungs burning, and forced himself to move forward. Each step was an act of courage, each breath an acknowledgement of reality, each glance into the pools a confrontation with truth. The labyrinth responded to him, pulsing, twisting, reshaping with his understanding, demanding acknowledgement at every turn. "You are approaching the final phase," the woman said, voice omnipresent yet calm. "The caper nears its apex. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact has brought you here. Continue, Harold Vance. Confront, endure, understand. Only then will the reckoning reach its conclusion." Harold staggered onward, muscles screaming, mind overwhelmed by the intensity of the reflections, the shadows, and the ceaseless pulse of the artifact. The corridor bent impossibly, the walls folding upon themselves, pools merging into rivers that flowed against the natural laws of reality. Every step forward was agony, yet with every agonizing step, a faint clarity began to emerge. The labyrinth, the shadows, the reflections, the artifact, they were not merely punishment, but opportunity, a crucible, a means to achieve understanding, endurance, and revelation. The artifact pulsed violently, casting jagged light that illuminated every surface, every pool, every reflection, every shadow. Harold saw the totality of his life. Acts of selfishness, moments of courage, betrayals, loyalties, lost opportunities, moments of mercy, and failures to act. Every image throbbed with significance, demanding recognition, forcing acknowledgement. The shadow that mirrored him moved fluidly, a constant companion and accuser, pushing him to confront every truth he had evaded. Harold pressed forward, step by trembling step, each motion a negotiation with the entirety of his existence. Every breath, every heartbeat, every pulse of the artifact reminded him that cleverness, skill, or cunning could no longer serve him. The fatal caper was no longer about survival or acquisition. It was about revelation, understanding, and endurance. Only by facing the full measure of himself, by acknowledging every choice, every consequence, could he hope to survive what lay ahead. And as Harold moved deeper into the labyrinth, shadows and reflections shifting around him, he realized that the next chamber, the next revelation, the next trial awaited. Each step brought him closer to a confrontation that would test not his cunning, but his endurance, understanding, and the courage to face himself fully. The fatal caper had evolved from a challenge into a crucible, a relentless force demanding truth, and Harold understood that only by embracing the totality of his life could he hope to emerge from it alive. Harold's legs felt like lead, every muscle protesting violently as he forced himself forward. The corridor twisted impossibly, the walls folding and bending in ways that defied logic, creating angles that seemed to trap him in a perpetual state of vertigo. Pools of black water rippled along the floor, reflecting fragmented nightmarish visions of his past, his present, and futures that might never come to pass. Each reflection shimmered with a pulse, in rhythm with the artifact he clutched, as if the briefcase itself had become He pressed on, each step a conscious effort of endurance, each breath a battle. Shadows clung to the walls and floor, writhing like living things, shifting in response to his movements. Faces of friends betrayed, lovers abandoned, and rivals deceived appeared and disappeared in the distorted reflections, their silent accusations gnawing at his conscience. The artifact pulsed violently, thrumming against his chest, a relentless reminder that the fatal caper had grown far beyond a simple challenge. It had become a mirror of his life, a crucible that demanded confrontation, acknowledgement, and endurance. "You continue," the woman's voice rang out, omnipresent and echoing from every shadow. "You endure, you witness, you confront. Yet, understanding remains incomplete. The labyrinth is alive, Harold Vance. Every hesitation, every denial, every attempt at evasion feeds it, shapes it, and ensures that no truth escapes reckoning." Harold's knees buckled under exhaustion. I've seen it all. I've endured everything." His voice cracked, resonating against the walls, swallowed immediately by the labyrinth's oppressive presence. "No," the woman replied, her voice both gentle and merciless, cutting through the echoes like a knife. "Seeing is not understanding. Witnessing is not reckoning. The caper is alive. It demands comprehension, acknowledgement, and courage. Every choice, every action, every thought you have ever held contributes to your reality here. Only through complete acknowledgement can you move forward." The pools of black water shifted violently, and one reflection separated from its surface entirely, coalescing into a shadow that mirrored Harold in perfect detail. Its eyes glowed faintly, accusingly, every feature twisted to exaggerate the consequences of his greed, his cruelty, his ambition. The shadow advanced silently, an unyielding reminder of the darkness within him. Harold's heart pounded as he faced the living embodiment of his own flaws. "You cannot escape?" the woman said, stepping closer. Her presence was palpable, pressing against him like a living force. "Every instinct to flee, every hope for denial, every plea for reprieve is meaningless. You are bound by your choices. The labyrinth, the shadows, the reflections, they are extensions of your life, and they will not relent until you confront the truth of yourself completely." Harold forced himself upright, legs shaking violently, gripping the artifact as it pulsed with urgency. The corridor twisted further, shadows merging with reflections to form a living, breathing tapestry of consequence. Jagged light from the briefcase illuminated every face, every memory, every moment of moral compromise. The echoes of his misdeeds surrounded him, pressing into his mind, demanding recognition, accountability, and endurance. He moved forward with painstaking care, each step a negotiation with his own conscience. The labyrinth seemed to anticipate his movements, responding dynamically to his awareness, his fear, his acknowledgement. Pools reflected not only past actions but potential futures, branching infinitely, showing outcomes of choices made and unmade, possibilities of mercy, betrayal, greed, and redemption. Harold realized the caper had evolved from a mere test into a sentient, living reckoning. "You resist," the woman whispered, her voice flowing around him like a river. "You fear the weight of your own existence. But the caper is relentless. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact exists to compel you to endure, to confront, to acknowledge. Only through total engagement can you hope to survive." Harold's vision blurred as the reflections coalesced into a swirling mosaic of past deeds, potential consequences, and alternate paths. He saw himself in countless scenarios, some honorable, some despicable, all connected by choices made and avoided. The shadow that mirrored him pressed ever closer, moving with fluid precision, silently demanding recognition of the darkness he could no longer ignore. He pressed the briefcase to his chest, muscles trembling violently, and moved forward, step by agonizing step. Each motion was a negotiation with the entirety of his life. Every breath reminded him that cunning, skill, or cleverness were irrelevant here. The fatal caper was no longer a challenge of survival. It was a crucible for revelation, understanding, and endurance. Only by confronting every choice, every consequence, and every truth could he hope to emerge intact. The labyrinth responded to him, walls bending, shadows shifting, reflections rippling in response to his growing comprehension. Pools of black water mirrored every action, every hesitation, every misdeed, and every act of mercy. The artifact's pulse intensified, guiding him forward, tethering him to the path. Harold understood, with painful clarity, that this was no longer a mere test of cunning. It was the ultimate reckoning, a living judgment of every decision he had ever made. "You approach the culmination," the woman's voice echoed, omnipresent, calm, yet insistent. "Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact has led you here. Continue, Harold Vance. Confront yourself fully, endure completely, understand absolutely. Only through this will the fatal caper reach its conclusion." Harold staggered onward, body screaming in protest, mind overwhelmed by the intensity of the reflections and shadows. The corridor bent and folded in ways that defied reality, pools merging and flowing like rivers of darkness, twisting into geometries that challenged his perception. Each step forward was agony, yet within the pain, a faint clarity began to emerge. The labyrinth, the artifact, the shadows, the reflections, they were no longer threats. They were guides, crucibles, teachers demanding endurance and comprehension. The artifact pulsed violently, casting jagged light across the corridor, illuminating every surface, every reflection, every shadow. Harold saw the totality of his life, acts of selfishness, moments of courage, betrayals, loyalty, lost opportunities, mercies extended, and failures of conscience. Each image throbbed with significance, demanding acknowledgement and recognition. The shadow that mirrored him pressed closer, a living testament to the consequences he could no longer ignore. He moved forward, step by trembling step, muscles aching, lungs burning, gripping the artifact tightly. Every breath, every heartbeat, every pulse reminded him that cleverness or cunning could no longer serve him. The fatal caper demanded endurance, revelation, and confrontation. Only by embracing the totality of his life, by acknowledging every act and consequence, could he hope to survive the next phase of this relentless reckoning. And, as Harold continued deeper into the labyrinth, shadows and reflections shifting around him, he knew the ultimate trial awaited, the moment when understanding, endurance, and confrontation would converge, and the fatal caper would reveal whether he could survive its final judgment. The labyrinth's walls closed in around Harold as he moved forward, the very air thick with tension, heavy with the scent of damp stone and something indefinably metallic. Shadows clung to every surface, coiling and twisting like serpents, responding to his heartbeat, to the rhythm of the artifact pulsing violently in his hands. Each step felt like wading through treacle. His body screamed in protest, yet he knew he could not stop. The labyrinth demanded motion, demanded confrontation, demanded endurance. Every pool of black water along the floor shimmered with reflections that were no longer passive mirrors of his past. They leapt and swirled, forming fleeting images of futures that could never be altered, of choices he might have made differently, of betrayals uncorrected, and acts of mercy denied. Faces emerged, twisted with accusation or sorrow, and Harold felt the weight of each one pressing into his chest, his back, his very bones. He pressed the briefcase tighter against him, feeling the thrum of the artifact synchronize with his own ragged heartbeat. "You continue," the woman's voice resonated, omnipresent and calm, yet imbued with a chilling authority. "You endure, you witness, you confront, yet understanding is incomplete. The labyrinth evolves with you, shapes itself around your comprehension, tests your courage, and forces acknowledgement. The fatal caper is not merely a trial of cunning, Harold Vance. It is a trial of the soul." Harold staggered forward, muscles trembling violently, knees nearly buckling beneath the weight of exhaustion and fear. "I've endured it all. I've faced everything." His voice cracked, echoing against the walls, swallowed almost immediately by the oppressive labyrinth. "No," the woman replied, her tone cutting through the shadows like a razor. "Seeing is not understanding. Witnessing is not reckoning. You must comprehend the full measure of your choices, acknowledge their consequences, and confront the darkness within. Only through total acknowledgement can the path forward be revealed. The artifact pulsed violently, casting fractured, jagged light across the walls and floor. Shadows moved unnaturally in response, converging and twisting into shapes that mirrored Harold's deepest fears. One shadow, detached entirely from the walls, mirrored his every movement with grotesque precision, eyes glowing faintly, features twisted by consequences of greed, cruelty, and ambition. It advanced silently, relentless, a living reminder of the darkness he could no longer deny. "You cannot flee," the woman said, stepping closer from the shadows, her presence pressing down like a tangible weight. "Every instinct to deny, every hope to escape, every plea for reprieve is meaningless. You are bound by your choices. The labyrinth, the reflections, the artifact, they are extensions of your life, and they will not relent until you confront the totality of yourself." Harold forced himself upright, legs trembling, gripping the artifact as if it were the only thing keeping him tethered to reality. The corridor twisted further, shadows merging with reflections to form a living mosaic of consequence. Light from the pulsing artifact illuminated every memory, every choice, every betrayal, and act of courage. The labyrinth seemed alive, feeding off his awareness, reshaping itself around his acknowledgement, demanding that he endure every truth. He moved forward with painstaking care. Each step was a negotiation with his own conscience. Each breath a reminder that survival now depended not on skill or cunning, but on comprehension, acknowledgement, and endurance. The pools of black water reflected past deeds, but now they also showed him potential futures, branching infinitely, revealing what might occur if he continued on his current path and what might be possible if he embraced understanding and acknowledgement. "You resist," the woman whispered, her voice like a current flowing through the shadows. "You fear the full weight of your life. But the caper is relentless. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact compels you to endure, to confront, to acknowledge. Only through total engagement can you survive." Harold's vision swam as the reflections converged, forming a kaleidoscope of his past, present, and potential futures. He saw himself making choices he had never made, witnessing outcomes he had never considered, all variations on a theme of greed, ambition, and survival. The shadow that mirrored him pressed ever closer, moving fluidly, silently demanding recognition of the darkness he could no longer evade. He pressed the briefcase against his chest, legs trembling violently, and forced himself onward. Each step became both agony and revelation, each breath a confrontation with his own conscience. The labyrinth responded dynamically, walls bending, shadows shifting, reflections rippling, all demanding acknowledgement and comprehension. The artifact pulsed with growing intensity, a relentless heartbeat guiding him forward. Harold realized with painful clarity that cleverness, skill, or cunning were meaningless here. The fatal caper was no longer a mere trial. It was a living judgment, a crucible demanding endurance, revelation, and confrontation. Only by acknowledging every act, every choice, every consequence could he hope to survive. "You approach the ultimate phase," the woman said, omnipresent and calm, her voice echoing through the twisted corridor. "Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact has brought you here. Continue, Harold Vance. Confront yourself fully, endure completely, understand absolutely. Only through this will the fatal caper reach its final judgment." Harold staggered forward, muscles screaming, mind assaulted by the intensity of the shadows, reflections, and pulsing artifact. The corridor folded in upon itself, impossible angles bending space, pools merging into rivers that flowed against every natural law. Every step was agony, yet within the pain, clarity began to emerge. The labyrinth, the reflections, the shadows, and the artifact were guides now. Crucibles meant to teach endurance, comprehension, and acknowledgement. The artifact pulsed violently, casting jagged light across every surface. Harold saw the totality of his life. Acts of selfishness, betrayals, Moments of courage, lost opportunities, mercies granted and withheld. Each image throbbed with significance, demanding recognition. The shadow that mirrored him moved ever closer, a living testament to consequences long ignored. He moved forward, step by trembling step, muscles aching, lungs burning, gripping the artifact tightly. Every breath, every heartbeat, every pulse reminded him that survival depended not on cleverness, but on confrontation with himself. The fatal caper demanded endurance, revelation, and comprehension. Only by embracing the totality of his existence could he hope to survive the next trial. And as Harold pressed onward, shadows and reflections shifting around him, he realized that the ultimate confrontation, the final reckoning, was waiting, and only by acknowledging everything could he hope to emerge alive from the labyrinth of the fatal caper. Harold's muscles burned as he pressed onward, each step an exercise in endurance. The corridor had narrowed to a suffocating passage, its walls bending and folding with impossible angles, as if the very fabric of reality was trying to confine him. Pools of black water appeared more frequently, rippling and shivering, reflecting visions that were no longer static. They moved, twisted, and coalesced into scenes that tore at his soul. Faces of those he had betrayed, moments of cowardice, acts of selfishness. They all stared at him, accusatory and relentless, demanding acknowledgement, demanding understanding, demanding confrontation. The artifact pulsed violently in his hands, a living heartbeat that synchronized with his own, thrumming through his chest and radiating along his limbs. Harold realized it was more than a vessel for stolen fortune. It had become the key, the conduit through which the fatal caper measured, tested, and judged him. Every pulse reminded him that cleverness alone would not save him. Survival depended on recognition, acknowledgement, and endurance. "You continue." The woman's voice resonated omnipresently, wrapping around him like liquid air. "You endure, you witness, you confront. Yet understanding is incomplete. The labyrinth reshapes itself with your every thought, every hesitation, every act of denial. The fatal caper is alive, Harold Vance. It is not simply a test, it is judgment itself." Harold staggered, knees nearly giving out beneath exhaustion and fear. "I've seen it all. I've endured." His voice cracked, bouncing off the impossible walls, swallowed almost immediately by the oppressive corridor. "No," the woman replied softly, her tone precise and merciless. "Seeing is not understanding. Witnessing is not reckoning. You must comprehend the weight of every choice, acknowledge every consequence, confront the darkness within. Only through complete acknowledgement will you advance." The black pools writhed violently as one reflection detached itself from the water, forming a shadow that mirrored Harold's every movement. Its eyes glowed faintly, accusatory, its features twisted with consequences of his worst impulses, greed, cruelty, and ambition untempered by conscience. The shadow moved silently, inexorably, a living embodiment of the darkness Harold could no longer deny. "You cannot escape," the woman's voice intoned, stepping closer from the shadows, her presence heavy and oppressive. "Every instinct to flee, every hope of denial, every plea for reprieve is meaningless. You are bound by your choices. The labyrinth, the reflections, the artifact, they are extensions of your life, and they will not relent until you face yourself fully." Harold forced himself upright, legs trembling violently. The corridor bent further, walls folding impossibly, shadows merging with reflections to form a living mosaic of consequence. The artifact pulsed with a violent rhythm, illuminating every face, every memory, every act of betrayal and mercy. The labyrinth seemed alive, responding to his recognition, reshaping itself around his understanding, demanding endurance. He moved forward cautiously, each step a negotiation with his conscience. Pools reflected past deeds and potential futures, branching endlessly, showing outcomes of greed, selfishness, betrayal, and mercy. The fatal caper had evolved. It was no longer merely a trial of survival. It was a crucible, demanding endurance, comprehension, and acknowledgement. "You resist," the woman whispered, her voice flowing like water through the corridor. you fear the full weight of your existence. But the caper is relentless. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact compels you to endure, confront, and acknowledge. Only through complete engagement can you survive. Harold's vision swam as reflections converged into a kaleidoscope of past deeds, present truths, and potential outcomes. He saw himself making choices he had never made, witnessing results he had never imagined, each a lesson in consequence and morality. The shadow mirrored him relentlessly, its presence an unyielding reminder of the darkness within, demanding acknowledgement. He pressed the artifact to his chest, legs trembling violently, forcing himself onward. Each step was agony and revelation, each breath a confrontation with his own conscience. The labyrinth responded dynamically. Walls twisted, shadows shifted, reflections rippled, all demanding recognition. The artifact pulsed with growing intensity, a heartbeat guiding him forward, tethering him to the path. Harold realized with painful clarity that skill, cunning, or cleverness were meaningless here. The fatal caper demanded endurance, revelation, and confrontation. Only by acknowledging every act, choice, and consequence could he hope to survive. "You approach the ultimate phase," the woman said, omnipresent, her voice calm yet commanding. "Every reflection, shadow, and pulse of the artifact has led you here. Continue, Harold Vance. Confront yourself fully, endure completely, and understand absolutely. Only then will the fatal caper reach its final judgment." Harold staggered forward, muscles screaming, mind overwhelmed by the intensity of reflections, shadows, and the artifact's pulse. The corridor folded in on itself, impossible angles twisting reality, pools merging into rivers of black that flowed against all logic. Each step was agony, yet within the pain a clarity began to emerge. The labyrinth, the shadows, the reflections, and the artifact were guides, crucibles, meant to test endurance and comprehension, to demand confrontation. The artifact pulsed violently, casting jagged light across every surface. Harold saw the totality of his life: betrayals, selfish acts, moments of courage, lost opportunities, mercies granted and withheld. Each image throbbed with significance, demanding acknowledgement. The shadow pressed closer, a living testament to consequences he had ignored. Step by trembling step, Harold moved forward, muscles aching, lungs burning, gripping the artifact tightly. Every heartbeat, every pulse reminded him that survival depended on confrontation, not cleverness. The fatal caper demanded endurance, revelation, and full acknowledgement. Only by embracing the totality of his life could he hope to survive the next trial. And as Harold pressed onward, shadows and reflections shifting, he understood that the ultimate confrontation, the final reckoning, was approaching, and only by facing everything could he hope to emerge alive from the labyrinth of the fatal caper. Harold's steps grew heavier, each movement a battle against the relentless pull of exhaustion and fear. The corridor had become a twisting nightmare, walls bending and folding impossibly, shadows stretching and coiling like living creatures. The black pools of water along the floor multiplied and swirled, reflecting not only fragments of his past, but entire sequences of events, as if the labyrinth were revealing the complete tapestry of his existence. Faces of friends betrayed, rivals deceived, and innocents ensnared by his actions stared silently, accusingly, demanding recognition and understanding. The artifact pulsed violently in his hands, its rhythm synchronized with his racing heart. It was no longer a mere container of stolen wealth. It had become the very core of the labyrinth, the vessel through which the fatal caper measured him. Every pulse carried the weight of judgment, forcing him to confront choices he had made, mistakes he had avoided acknowledging, and desires he had never fully examined. "You continue," the woman's voice echoed, omnipresent and insistent, weaving through the labyrinth like smoke. "You endure, you witness, you confront. Yet understanding remains incomplete. The labyrinth shapes itself according to your perception, your courage, and your willingness to acknowledge the truth. The fatal caper is alive, Harold Vance. It is not merely a trial, it is judgment. Harold stumbled, knees nearly buckling beneath the strain. I've endured everything. I've faced it all. His voice cracked, echoing against the twisted walls, swallowed immediately by the oppressive silence of the corridor. No, the woman replied, her tone cutting and precise. Seeing is not understanding. Witnessing is not reckoning. You must confront the full weight of your choices, acknowledge every consequence, and embrace the darkness within yourself. Only then can the path forward be revealed. The pools writhed violently, one reflection detaching itself entirely from the water and forming a shadow that mirrored Harold's every move. Its eyes glowed faintly, accusatory, every feature distorted to reflect the consequences of his darkest impulses: greed, cruelty, and arrogance untempered by conscience. The shadow advanced silently, inexorable, a living testament to the darkness Harold could no longer deny or evade. You cannot escape, the woman said, her presence pressing on him like a tangible weight. Every instinct to flee, every hope of denial, every plea for reprieve is meaningless. You are bound by your choices. The labyrinth, the shadows, the reflections, they are extensions of your life and will not relent until you confront yourself fully. Harold forced himself upright, legs trembling violently, gripping the artifact as if it were his lifeline. The corridor twisted further, impossible angles bending reality, shadows merging with reflections to create a living tapestry of consequence. Light from the artifact illuminated every memory, every action, every betrayal, every moment of courage. The labyrinth seemed sentient, responding to his awareness, reshaping itself with every acknowledgement, demanding endurance. Each step was a negotiation with his conscience, each breath a confrontation with reality. Pools reflected past deeds and potential futures, branching endlessly, showing the consequences of greed, selfishness, betrayal, and mercy. Harold realized with growing clarity that the caper was no longer merely a challenge of survival. It had become a sentient crucible, demanding endurance, comprehension, and acknowledgement. You resist, the woman whispered, her voice flowing like a current around him. You fear the weight of your life, but the caper is relentless. Every reflection, every shadow, every pulse of the artifact compels you to endure, confront, and acknowledge. Only through complete engagement can you survive. Harold's vision blurred as the reflections converged into a swirling mosaic of past deeds, present truths, and potential outcomes. He saw himself making choices he had never made, witnessing results he had never imagined, all lessons in consequence and morality. The shadow pressed closer, moving fluidly, silently demanding recognition of the darkness he could no longer evade. He pressed the artifact to his chest, legs trembling violently, forcing himself onward. Every step was agony and revelation, each breath a confrontation with his own conscience. The labyrinth responded dynamically. Walls twisted, shadows shifted, reflections rippled, all demanding acknowledgement and comprehension. The artifact pulsed with growing intensity, a heartbeat guiding him forward, tethering him to the path. Harold understood at last with painful clarity that cleverness, skill, or cunning were irrelevant. The fatal caper demanded endurance, revelation, and confrontation. Only by acknowledging every act, choice, and consequence could he hope to survive. You approach the ultimate confrontation, the woman said, omnipresent, her voice calm yet commanding. Every reflection, shadow, and pulse of the artifact has brought you here. Continue, Harold Vance. Confront yourself fully, endure completely, understand absolutely. Only then will the fatal caper reach its final judgment. Harold pressed onward, muscles screaming, mind assaulted by shadows and reflections, by the ceaseless pulse of the artifact. The corridor folded in on itself, impossible angles twisting space, pools merging into rivers of black flowing against all logic. Each step was agony, yet within that pain clarity began to emerge. The labyrinth, the reflections, the shadows, the artifact, they were guides, crucibles demanding endurance and comprehension, compelling confrontation. The artifact pulsed violently, casting jagged, flickering light across every surface. Harold saw the totality of his life. Betrayals, selfish acts, moments of courage, lost opportunities, mercies granted and withheld. Each image throbbed with significance, demanding acknowledgement. The shadow pressed ever closer, a living testament to consequences he had long ignored. Step by trembling step, Harold advanced, muscles aching, lungs burning, gripping the artifact tightly. Every heartbeat reminded him that survival depended on confrontation, not cleverness. The fatal caper demanded endurance, revelation, and acknowledgement. Only by embracing the totality of his life could he hope to survive the next trial. And as Harold pressed onward, the labyrinth around him shifting, shadows coiling and reflections merging, he realized the ultimate confrontation. The final reckoning was near. Only by facing everything could he hope to emerge alive from the fatal caper,